What is up, BJPenn.com? Here we are again, another episode of BJPenn.com Radio. As always, I am joined by our illustrious host, Mr. George Matthews, hailing from Atlanta, Georgia. What's up, George?
Illustrious, I like that. Not much, man. What's going on?
Not much, not much. What'd you think of last weekend's fights, bro?
Those fights are pretty awesome, man. I guess we're gonna just dive right into it, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, no. Let me just. Who'd you think won the fight? Let's just get to the main event real quick. Who'd you think won?
Um, I think Benson won, I guess. Here's the thing. It was
Who'd you
two.
think won when you first? Okay, the fight ends and you're waiting for the decision to get read. Who'd you think won?
I was nervous that Gilbert Melendez won, but I was kind of crossing my fingers or just saying that in my head that it was too close for a judge to award him the decision. You know that old saying, you got to beat the champ to be the champ. And that's kind of where I really fell. I was like, man, I don't think Gilbert did enough, but I don't know. It could, in my eyes, it could have been a draw, and if it was a draw, I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
Right, right. Okay, that's fair. I think everybody's kind of been on the same, sort of singing the same tune, and I didn't know what to think when the fight ended. So, to be honest with you, I was just like looking at it like from kind of the same perspective. You had to beat the champ, but some of those rounds, I wasn't sure. Especially round two. I mean, who won that? It's that was like the question mark in my head because I was like, well, I, you know, a couple of those they weren't none of them were really definitive except for I think Ben won three and four definitively, but the rest of them I was like, well, Gilbert might have won those rounds. Gilbert might have won those rounds, and the people that were around me watching the fight thought that Gilbert might have won those rounds. So I thought, well, maybe judges think that too, but it was close. It was a split decision as we thought it was going to be, and went the distance. It was a good fight, but I don't know, man. I'm just did Ben really do enough? Yeah, it was close, and they're probably gonna have to fight again.
It was too close. It was like, I think that Gilbert's power um, made it difficult for Ben to confidently engage in any real exchanges. I think the way Gilbert was just sitting down on his punches and kind of ready to strike, and playing the counter game. I think that that was the right strategy, and I think that maybe if he was more aggressive, he probably could have taken the belt. But
I think that you're right. I was a little bit surprised in the fifth round that neither guy came out like guns blazing to take the round. Like even the last minute or so of the fight, nothing really went on. Nobody went after it to like say, "This round is mine. I got it. I got to make the last impression." And I was really surprised that nobody really went. Particularly Gilbert, I was surprised he didn't. He wasn't like, "Fuck, I got to take this guy's belt." I really have to sway the judges for this fifth. It didn't happen. I was.
well, I think a lot of that is probably to do with Gilbert's corner was telling him he's winning these rounds. And in a championship fight, you're not going to go out there and risk shit. You know what I mean? If your corner is telling you you're winning the rounds, these are guys that you trust. And not saying they didn't believe he was winning the rounds, but if they would have told him you need to go out and take this fight, then it might have been different. But when you can be very complacent if you think you're up on the scorecards, and here you go. Not only was it a championship fight, it's his UFC debut. He's been arguably one of the best lightweights in the world for years, and it was, I mean, a lot of pressure for Gilbert Melendez going into that fight. And if I was him, I probably would have played it safe too. If that was the course of action he did, that what he really took at least.
I was shocked that Jake Shields was telling him, "You're up. You're up easy." Like that's terrible advice to tell him. If perhaps if you had told him the other way, then he comes out and tries to steal that fifth. I didn't think that was I didn't think that was a good idea to tell him that. You know, I understand wanting to build the confidence up during the fight, but you've also got to be realistic with with the guy you're cornering so that he comes out and does the right things. So I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised. But at any rate, the whole thing was just a pretty crazy ordeal. I'm not going to be surprised if they have to fight again. I'm not going to be surprised if there's an instant rematch, if you want the honest to God truth. The way they've been doing instant rematches, especially at lightweight, we go all the way back to when BJ was champion, you know, rematches with Frankie Edgar. Then Frankie Edgar has, these rematches with Gray, and now it's Ben and Frankie, and now it seems like Frankie and Gil are meant for a trilogy. And while we're on the subject of trilogies, there was a guy that competed this past weekend on Fox, Josh Thompson, and he had a hell of a trilogy with Gilbert Melendez. I actually thought he won the last fight with Gilbert. And, you know, I think he's a guy in that division that really came into his own this past weekend because he just picked off, a guy that's been a contender at that weight class for quite some time. He's been in the mix.
Not
He
only
fought
not
for the title.
not only a contender, but the number one contender. He's the last person to fight for the lightweight title as of that night. Before Gilbert, um, never been stopped, right? Or excuse me, never been TKO'd. Josh Thompson's the one to do it. He's on the line right now. Josh, how's it going?
What's up, guys? What's up, man? How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Hello.
How's it
Good.
going? We're a couple days removed. How you feeling?
My legs are a little banged up. He checked a couple of my kicks, and so they're a little banged up. And then, of course, the head kick was straight shin to head, so it was I got a nasty knot and bruise on my leg still that I've been getting worked out every day. So it's it's good. I'm able to walk today. I was struggling to walk on Saturday and Sunday. A little bit on Monday, but I'm up and moving around now.
Well, let me just tell you real quick, and I'm just gonna come out and eat shit right now because I picked Nate. We went over the picks last week, and I picked Nate. Reluctantly picked Nate. I think it was so close, and so I will be the bigger man and say I was wrong and eat shit on my picks on that one, Josh. You came and did it, man.
Poor
So
George.
congrats.
George didn't know, Josh. My bad,
Hey,
man. I can't make excuses for this guy.
man. Nobody's perfect, all right. The key is just to own up to it, fess up to it, and hey, move on. Be the better man, and you're taking that step towards it. It's denial is you got to get past that denial stage. Once you got past that, the sky's the limit for you, brother. The sky's the limit.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Really though, Josh. I mean, you have to be on cloud nine right now. Arguably one of your biggest wins in your career, if not the biggest win in your career. You're back in the UFC. We had you on the show a couple weeks ago before the fight. You wanted to make a statement. You did it. You're the first guy to TKO Nate Diaz. How does that really
Yeah.
feel? What are your thoughts on that?
If honestly, it feels great, man. Nate's tough. I don't have to sit here and tell you guys how good he is, man. Everybody knows. Shit, you pick somebody against me, so that lets you know he's tough, man. He's good, and it's just him and his brother both are good, and they're just hard guys they're stylistically they're hard to match up against for anybody. And like I said, I played this fight over in my head 100 times, and never did I have it go down like this. You dream about it, you think about it, but it doesn't really happen like this. So honestly, just right now I can't say it enough. I'm happy. That all my hard work is paid off, and like I said, it just all I feel like I've done is just put myself in that conversation now of, hey, you might be potentially next or, the one right after that to fight for the title. That's all I can ask for is just to be brought up in the conversation now. Before, I don't think I was there, and I don't think people respected me enough, and, I don't think people, I guess they just underappreciated me or something. I don't know what it is. My whole career has been that way. I think it's because of the plague injuries and things like that, but I feel like this is something that has been a long time coming, and and I can only get better. And I felt like I didn't have a great camp. I had a good camp. I didn't have a great camp. And I felt like I could only get better from that, So, man, I'm excited.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, Josh. Last time we had you on the show, you said you were busy in China filming the movie, right? And because of that movie, you kind of made some sacrifices in the training. You didn't give yourself the usual time to train and prepare for a fight. But in this fight, you looked better than. I mean, you looked good, man. You looked better than ever. Do you think that you might have taken away something from this training camp, as far as maybe we know that Josh Thompson, who trains his butt off, right? And sometimes maybe an overtrained Josh Thompson gets injured. So going in there, not overtraining, sticking to the basics, getting your work in. Was that what you think maybe made the difference in this fight, or what?
Yeah, I really do believe so. I mean, even the last 2 weeks, I felt like I was a little overtrained. I think my explosiveness had disappeared. I didn't start feeling myself until probably Wednesday or Thursday, and then I had to start cutting weight, and I'm like, all right, and then I cut weight and just rehydrated, and then actually Saturday, I was concerned because of the weight cut. It was a pretty easy weight cut, but I didn't start feeling like it was the potential of it being an early fight, that I wasn't going to have the full amount of time to rehydrate or feel good, and just kind of get back into my body a little, and but I mean, everything felt good around 1 o'clock, around noon, 1 o'clock, right before we had to go check in. I just got a little pump of energy, and it just, man, I felt like $1 million, and I don't know, like I said, there's times that you show up to the venue, right, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm just not feeling it. But this was really not one of those times. I showed up to the venue feeling that little bit of a tingle, like excitement and feeling energy and just feeling energetic and ready to go. And I was like, man, where's this been? And I actually felt good. You know what I mean? It felt really nice to show up knowing that I really had no injuries. I had a couple little tiny things, but nothing that, obviously was going to keep me from fighting. So it's just nothing that, and I just felt like, man, this is what it feels like, huh? This is what it feels like. Now it just was up for me to go out there and get the win. So that's really what it felt. I felt really good, man. I'm like I said, I'm still excited about it all.
Yeah, I remember thinking that as I'm watching the fight, I'm like, I just talked to him a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, tops, and he's sitting there selling it like, oh, I didn't have much time to train, and here he is looking like, one of the best in the world. Moving around, perfect movement, in and out of the pocket, not getting hit with anything major, landing big shots, circling off you would never, if somebody had listened to that interview with you talking, and they would have never believed. They're like, well, if this is what he looks like when he hasn't had a good camp and has been filming a movie, let's let him have a good camp, because you came out looking awesome. Was there at any so the round begins? At what point were you like, man, I'm really comfortable in here with this guy, and I think this is really going to go my way?
Yeah, I felt really good. I felt good. Everything felt good. We just, I don't know. I felt like once he threw a couple combinations and I was able to miss the punches. Honestly, I felt like he wasn't fast enough to really hit me with anything. As long as I respected him, I had to respect his ability. His range, his length, just his combinations and how he throws them. Like I said, obviously I don't need to tell you guys, him and his brother are very talented. They're very good boxers. They throw punches in bunches, all that stuff. And I had to always respect him, and never let myself get out of control, and just get too arrogant and cocky. And I felt like I did that, and I felt like everything worked out perfectly because of that.
What about when he starts there at one point in the fight, as we all assumed, he would start the taunting and come at me, motherfucker, all that. Was that even a thought in your head to come after him?
What's funny is my kickboxing instructor, Derek Ewan, he actually did a little bit of that during my mitt stuff. As I would get tired, he would put his hands up and he would flinch at me and do things like that. And then I sparred with a couple guys that were kind of doing that to me. And, honestly, in training, it pissed me off. I was like, you guys are irritating me because I'm tired and you guys are fresh. I had a guy that came from Hawaii. His name's Rambo. He came over and he was doing shit like that. you know. And so then I had, one of our other guys, he's like a 6'3" guy, you know, he was doing that to me as well. And it gets a little irritating when you're tired and they're coming in fresh in the round, you know, and you're like, I know you, and you're doing the shit. But it was just a game plan. They did it, you know, my coaches had them do it, and I felt like it helped. So when he started talking, I was just kind of giving my smirk like I've been through this already, you know. And so that was the key, was for me to keep a level head.
When you realize that, you know, you land the big kick, you rock them, and you just stormed on them. Did you think that, were you just going to keep on throwing until it was over, or did you think that that he was going to be out from the strikes, or did you even realize that somebody had thrown the towel in for him? His brother threw the towel in.
No, I didn't realize someone would throw the towel. There was a couple things. Like, I felt the kick land, but I mean, the first kick that I landed in the first round actually felt better than that one, because I hit him with more of my foot in the first one, and it felt more flush, you know. This one, I felt like, I don't know if I don't know if I was really watching or whatever, but I felt like I grazed his head with my bone, you know, with my shin. But then I saw him wobble a little bit. That's why if you watch the fight again, like, I kind of like stepped back, like, okay, is he going to do something? And I saw him wobble a little, and then I wanted to make sure that I didn't come in too hard and just flurry and miss my punches, you know. So if you notice, my next two shots were right on the chin, you know, two right hands, just boom, boom, and then he went down, and then that's when I got a little too crazy. I should have picked and choose my shots a little bit better when he rolled up, you know. I think I could have finished him for sure, but I mean, you know, I was just, as I was grinding and pounding, as I was trying to put him away, I kept the ref in my peripheral, making sure that he was always right there nearby, and, you know, and just stayed busy as best I could. And I didn't see the towel at all. So, you know, that was all just like an after thing. When we got back in the locker room, they're like, yeah, they threw the towel, and I was like, oh, well, it wouldn't have mattered anyways, you know. So.
Josh, you brought up my next question, man. In the first round, you hit him with that same kick, pretty much, and you know, as me personally, a self-admitted Josh Thompson fan, I was like, holy shit, that landed. At that point, at that point where you're like, wow, I can take this guy out? And second part to that question is, were you then looking for that same kick throughout the fight? Because that is what ended up pretty much putting him away.
No, what happened was I felt in the first couple combinations that I was faster than him. So then it was just a matter of setting up what I needed to set up. And then, to be honest, my whole camp was based around two things. Was kicking his legs, because they don't tend to check kicks, and he dips to that side a lot. So kind of making sure that we kick the lead leg a lot, push kick to the body a lot. Those are the things that we wanted to kind of keep his hands kind of at about waist level, you know, making sure his elbows stayed in to the stomach area, and then just setting up that head kick, you know, because he dipped that way. So setting it up and always making him think about it, you know. And then those are the two things that we mainly worked on in the camp, was really ripping that leg kick, and then getting him thinking about the legs and the lower body, the push kicks, and then getting ready to go up top. To be honest, after I kicked him in, after we made contact the first kick, I was like, shit, what's it going to take to get this guy out of here? He just ate my kick like a pancake, as Joe Rogan said.
Right.
You know, and so I was like, man. So then that's why, like, you know, he got a little, like, kind of like, he got a little feisty right after I kicked him. So then I went right back to it again and didn't land it as clean, you know, and just, you know, and then I decided after he kind of caught my kick a little bit in the second one, I decided, you know what? Let's just get away from the kicks altogether. Let's circle. Let's make him chase. Let's make him forget about the kicks altogether to the head, and just kind of get busy with little push kicks, a little bit of clinching. You know, not get him thinking about the head kick again. And then we went back to it right at the very end after we had a couple good exchanges. I wanted to wait till he was a little bit tired, and then he would just resort back to his natural habits, which was just dipping that way. And then it just happened to land, to be honest. I mean, you know.
That's amazing, man. Let me ask you this, Josh. At the post-fight press conference, Dana White announced that the next number one contender is going to be the winner of Gray Maynard versus TJ Grant. Was a part of you hoping that because of that performance that you had, that you were in the perfect position to go ahead and challenge for the belt next? And were you kind of hoping that he would have said your name in that instance, or did you kind of expect that you might have to get one more fight?
That's kind of a loaded question. I mean, come on, man. Really, I think everyone's expecting Dana just to say their name and hoping, you know, for him to say, hey, you know, he's next. and when my name wasn't put out there, and, of course I was heartbroken. But you know what? It's the nature of the beast, and, and I just got to go out there and try and make a statement in my next fight and prove it, and prove that I'm ready for the next fight. That's all I can do. I can't do anything else. So, hey, Gray's my teammate. Gray's phenomenal athlete. Gray is, Gray's ready. Gray's going to be ready. I think after this fight, he'll be the next lightweight champ. So, I'm just here to support Gray and make sure, that he gets the best training he can, and he's at AKA now, and I think it's great, man. So it's going to be, either way, one of us, whether it be Gray, me, or Khabib, one of us is going to win that title, out of the three of us. So that thing's going to be coming to AKA hopefully by the end of the year.
Oh, really? You guys definitely have a hell of a lightweight roster up there right now. Now we fast forward to the main event that night, and I gotta ask, who did you have winning the fight?
To be honest, I didn't really get a chance to watch the fight from the beginning to end. I think I only caught the last 2 rounds because of pictures and the commission and just medicals and stuff like that. So my honest opinion is I didn't really get to watch the fight. So I do know that from what I saw, it was close. And I mean, when fights are that close, you really can't argue with the decision. Like I was upset with my decision, and and I'm sure Gil's upset with his. When him and I fought. It's just the way it goes.
What kind of storyline would it be to come full circle where if you ended up challenging Ben Henderson for the title? Because I remember, a few years back that there were some interesting words exchanged between you two guys, and that'd be funny that if after all those years, here you come knocking on his door looking for his belt.
Yeah, I mean, I really expected that to happen. To be honest, I mean, after this fight and the way it all happened, I mean, I expected it to happen. To be honest, I thought they were going to say, hey, giving my big mouth back, back in the day when I had said he was no good, or when I had said he basically wasn't all that good because he was in the WC. I mean, years later, obviously, I'm putting my foot in my mouth just like you, on your decision last week. So, I mean, hey, like I said, I owned up to it, and and at the time, I was trying to point out that the Strikeforce fighters are just as good as the UFC guys, and then, and blah, blah, blah. And it just was one of those things, Obviously, I'm going to try and support the promotion that I'm in, but I really thought and believed that they were going to be, that they would have, matched us up, given that Gil and I's fight was so close. But hey, it is what it is, and I just got to keep chugging away and hopefully get another win like that.
Is the next fight to make, Josh, you and Gilbert 4? Because he's coming off the loss, you're coming off the win, same card. I mean, it seems like a logical choice. I'm sure that might be a way you'd like to get back.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really was. And obviously this is all in hindsight, but I really figured they were going to make me fight twice, and I really thought that they were going to probably have me fight Pettis if I beat Nate. But then I heard that Pettis is dropping to 45, and so then there goes that. So I have no idea what's going on. I don't know who they're going to have me fight next, and I had told Joe Silva when I got signed to the UFC, and they brought me over. I said, hey, just whoever's the fastest way to the title. I just want to fight whoever you want me to fight is the fastest way to the title. I'm no spring chicken anymore. And I just feel like this is my moment to really capture what I feel like I was that I didn't get an opportunity to capture back in 2003, 2004. And it was I feel like I could have won the UFC title back then. And now, this is my chance to do it again, and my career would be fully complete if I have a chance just to at least fight for it, and that to me is that you want to make, you want to end your career, you want to talk about having a full career, and, I fought for, if I had an opportunity to fight for the UFC title, I'm a former world champion in Strikeforce, and I feel like I've always been considered a top 10 guy, even though it hasn't really always been shown because of my injuries. But I've always felt like I had the talent to be a top 10 guy, and I feel like now I put myself in that position, and now it's now I just got to keep chugging away to eventually get my title shot. That's the best I can do.
Do you feel like that, with this platform now, being on Fox, that you're going to get that notoriety that you've been looking for? Because you're going to have that UFC machine behind you. You just picked off one of the best guys in the world, so obviously, you had a high-profile fight. The next fight is going to be even higher profile. I would think some sort of title eliminator fight. Although, you know, again, uh, the Pettis Aldo fight, Aldo was promised a title shot if he wins. So it seems like so many guys are really going for that 155 strap. How do you see the lay of the land at this point? Because like you said, you have your teammate there, you have Aldo, you have Pettis, you have you. Gilbert was razor thin with Ben. There's just so many
Yeah,
guys.
I don't think anybody sees a landscape. Honestly, I think it's I don't think any fighter really picks exactly how it's going to all go down. I mean, there was talk, and like I talked to Gray the other day. He was actually shocked that he was next. The winner of that fight was next. He's obviously really excited, and I mean, I'm really excited for him. So the best we can do is just make sure he's ready and ready to fight. So. I mean, like none of us know the landscape. I mean, whoever they want to put in there, whoever's the next contender, and I mean, I definitely can't complain. It's Gray. Gray was right ahead of Nate. Gray would be next, and that would be the best thing. That's logical. To be honest, that's logical.
All right. Well, Josh, man, I can't say enough how excited I was to see you get the victory. I think it's well deserved. You finally got the moment you deserved, I think, and I can't be prouder of you. I know you helped BJ train. You and we've hung out. You're a friend, and I just think it's awesome, man. So I want to say before we let you go, congratulations and best of luck in the next matchup, and we'll get you back on soon, hopefully, right?
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.
Josh the Punk Thompson, fresh off a win over Nate Diaz. Man, that was a hell of a victory.
He was excited, man. You could hear it, right? Wasn't he excited to talk about that fight?
I think he must have. It sounds like he's watched the fight like numerous times.
Yeah.
Like he knew the bit of action through everything as as you guys were going through it. He's like, no, actually, I threw this high kick here, da 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 da. Like gave you a play by play of exactly how it went down. It was really cool.
It was a big fight for him, and like I said on our last week's show, I'm always a big fan of the Caesar Gracie guys, right? We have a good relationship with them, but I was really hoping, if I had to choose one of those two to win, that Josh got it, and he did. So it was exciting, man.
Yeah, I love Nate and I love Josh too, and that's what we were talking about the last few weeks. It's a tough, when people ask me to pick fights like that, it's like, man, it's I really like both guys. It's one of those ones where it's like, man, I just can't win because I don't want to see either one of these guys lose. But Josh fought a hell of a fight, and you know, I was pretty serious, and I was like, man, for someone who supposedly didn't look that good and have a good training camp, you sure did put on a hell of a performance.
I think the thing with Josh is that guy's always in shape, right? I mean, I've been in AKA, my fair share of times, and this guy always is a real hard worker. So I think for him, he doesn't have that initial period that some fighters have where they're just trying to get in shape for the first 4 weeks. I mean, the guy's already in shape, and I think it showed.
Yeah, man, it sounds like he's gonna have a stacked group of guys there too. What it sounds like.
Yeah.
Him, Gray,
I,
Habib.
yeah, I really thought that the proper move for the UFC would be to put Josh in the title fight. Again, that could be my bias speaking, and I try not to be biased, but hey, we're all human. Um, I just thought that was the make sense fight for me. I really feel like TJ Grant versus Gray Maynard kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, TJ's a good guy. Gray's a good fighter. Gray's already had his two shots at the title, though. You know what I mean? Mind you, it was against a different guy, but still, I haven't heard him in the title hunt talks at all. But they just kind of threw that in there that last Saturday, and I was kind of surprised, man.
I am a bit surprised too, although we had TJ on, and maybe we were the catalyst, man, because you know, even he wasn't sure. He's like, I don't even know where I fit into the mix. He's got a lot of victories. He's on a good streak. Gray has been like a contender in that division, at the top of the division for a long time, and I'm not. I guess I'm not surprised in that respect, but um, Gray did just have a lot of title shots, a lot of chances, and I am.
How many? I mean, how many fights has Gray removed from a title? One, right? Isn't it just
Is it
one? I don't
is
know.
it just one? I don't remember
I'd have
now
to
at this
look it
point.
up.
Yeah, I had to look it up. But when I look at the lay of the land there, so many guys. It's like so many guys are promised title shots. Aldo's promised one. Pettis is looking for one. If he fights at 155, he was looking for one. Um, you've got Gill, who I don't say most, I want to say a lot of people think he won that fight against Ben. It was a really good performance. I mean, he's obviously an elite UFC lightweight, an elite lightweight in the division. That he proved that on Saturday. You know, you just got a lot of guys there, and you can only have two guys fighting for a belt. I'd like to see some fresh faces. I think that Aldo back in the mix at 55 makes it even more fun. I'm sorry, Aldo or Pettis back in the mix at 155 makes it even more fun too. When you look at the different matchups you could come up with, with those two guys, Pettis and Thompson, that'd be a really interesting fight.
That would be an interesting fight. When Josh said that he thought he was going to get put up with an Anthony Pettis next, I was like, I raised my brow over here. The listeners at home can't see me raising my brow, but I was like, ooh, that would be a kind of a good fight, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely, it would be a hell of a fight. Gilbert's chin and his ability to throw hard is what's going to make him a tough fight for guys at lightweight. I think that Eddie Alvarez would have had a really, really tough time with Gilbert when they were talking about that fight. Now that we're talking about all these lightweights and elite lightweights, if might as well just throw everybody's name in the mix at this point. But when style wise is you can see that that's where it's coming down to at 55 now, that it's so thin, like the level of talent is so close that the little tiny difference in style seems to dictate outcomes at this point.
Very true, very true.
But yeah, well, I guess we're gonna see how it comes together. But there's only a few logical fights for Josh, in my opinion. If he just picked off Nate, who just fought for the title. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't.
I honestly, man, if I wanted to play Nostradamus here, I'd say they're going to give him Gilbert Melendez. They can sell that fight. They can sell the hell out of that fight. Gilbert Melendez had a close fight with the champ. Josh Thompson knocked out the last number one contender. Both those fights were on Fox, so I think the audience would average 3.3 million viewers. A lot of eyes on both those guys right now, and they have the footage for days to freaking sell that fight. I mean, this guy's already fought 3 times, 3 close fights too. Um,
Let
so
me ask you this. Let me ask you this though. Before we drift off the topic, what do you do with Nate? If you're matchmaking now, what do you do?
I don't know, man. Nate said that he wants to go to welterweight, right?
Hmm.
So in my experience in dealing with BJ behind the scenes, if Nate is set on welterweight, the UFC is going to let him go. You know what I mean? So who knows who they give him up there? I don't think that's the wise move for Nate to make. I think he needs to stick at 155. I think when he got put against Rory McDonald, it showed what a bigger, stronger guy can do to him. You know. Um, so if you're Nate Diaz, I mean, you have to go for a top five guy. You have to go for the baddest guy available, right? But who is
Yeah.
that? I don't know.
Are there fights for him at 170? There's a lot of monsters at 170, man. Like
There
really,
are.
really big guy. Wasn't there? And I again, I don't want to confirm anything, but wasn't Hector Lombard talking about dropping to 170?
He was.
You got to deal with a guy like that.
Or just think about it even this way: Nate versus Jake Ellenberger, Nate versus Johnny Hendricks, Nate versus a guy like GSP. Those guys are huge. And Nate, as good as he is, we saw what Rory McDonald did to him, and I can't help but relate, but keep going back to that fight because that showed that he is not fit for welterweight. It showed
Yeah.
it. I mean, Rory's awesome, right? Rory's the man right now, but still, Nate Diaz is a good ass fighter. Put him in there against a striker, somebody who's not going to threaten the takedown. He could fight at welterweight, right? But anybody else is going to try to manhandle him around the cage. He doesn't his odds of success, they greatly reduce.
It looks like that people are on to
The Diaz.
the Diaz brothers style of striking and stand where they stand in front of you, and um, that I don't want to say that everybody's onto it, but the guys from the good camps are not letting their fighters fall prey to that strategy, into those tactics.
Yeah, man. As long as you got the speed and endurance, you can take them out of their game easy. It just takes the mentality and the restraint to do it for the 3 or 5 rounds. Depending upon the fight.
Yeah, because everybody wants to fire back.
Yeah.
They want to fire back because Nate's taunting or
There's
Nick's taunting.
yeah, there's ego involved. It's a fight. You know what I mean? If you've been in the fight before, I've been in the fight before. Everybody listening's probably been in the fight before, be it with your brother or some jerk up the street. Somebody hits you, you want to hit them back. Someone talks shit, you want to talk shit back. You want to make them pay. But as a professional athlete, these guys, if they want to get the win, the formula's out there for the Diaz brothers now.
Yeah, the people that stand toe to toe have just not done very well. You saw, a great example of this. If anybody is just, like, well, that's not true. Well, I'll give you a good example. Nate Diaz and Donald Cerrone. Okay, you want a good example? That was a hell of a fight, but that was Nate's fight
Yep.
because Nate fought his fight. He said, "Come fight my fight with me, and you're not going to win." And that's what it is. That's what it is.
Hmm.
And Nick has done that to a lot of guys too, Cyborg and Paul Daly, and a lot of dudes who just couldn't, some dudes couldn't get out of the first or second round with him. Um, and people are onto that now, and I don't know what it's going to look like for him at 170 pounds with guys like you're mentioning. Not that he's going to be getting a Johnny Hendricks or a George St. Pierre, but you know there were guys competing at division. I remember when Anthony Johnson was competing at 170. Can you imagine? Like that dude is so big.
He just fought at heavyweight against Andre Arlovsky. Yeah.
He looked bigger than Andre in the cage.
I think
I
he was
was.
thicker. He beat him. This guy was
He,
he was fighting at welterweight, mind you. I think he ran about a 50-50 average for actually making that weight limit, but I mean, he was a huge dude.
he no, he was, and he still is. He looked bigger than Arlovsky, but that's what I'm saying. You have guys like that kind of a Thiago Alves. You know, that's a 200 and something pound wrecking machine.
Yeah.
Like who throws leg kicks like you know. It's just these are just not good fights. But Nate's a real fighter, and he's gonna fight whoever he wants, and he's not scared of anybody. So it is what it is, I guess, in that respect. But um, he's much better at 155, in my opinion.
He is, and it sucks. We ran a headline on BJPen.com this past week, just I think on Monday, that the Diaz brothers are combined down 0-4 right now. And it's kind of crazy to think about because these are two guys that everybody considers some of the best fighters in the world, and but on paper they've both lost their last two fights, be it, you know, two of those were to in championship bouts, but for Nate, he has to be really careful what fight he takes next because he doesn't. I don't think he can afford to go down, 3 fights straight.
Yeah, I mean it's every fight at this point for a lot of guys is going to be make it or break it because there's just not room on the roster for you got women coming in now. You got to sign all those contracts. You have a lot of people on the roster now, and you're going to have to really perform, and that's why you see guys having safer fights who don't want to take those. A lot of people don't want to take chances, and because you know
Well,
it's
we
it
have a
means something to lose your job.
yeah. I mean, we have a guy on our show tonight, Bart Palaszewski, right?
Yeah.
He was in a similar situation. He had lost his last two fights. He went in against Cole Miller not last weekend, but the weekend prior, lost his third straight. We're gonna find out from him later what it's like to be down, 0-3 in the UFC, and what kind of pressure that puts on. But for a lot of guys, that means boom, you're gone.
It's not set in stone. I think that everybody kind of looks at it like, oh, I don't want to lose three. If you lose three, you're gone. You're three. You're three. You're gone. But it's not 100%, because a lot of it's based on your performance and previous performances and things like that. And so it's not set in stone. I mean, there's guys who've been cut after one fight. So
Yeah,
and there's
that's
guys
true.
who've been there, and there's guys who don't get cut, after three or four losses. So it just depends. It just depends, I guess. But yeah, we'll find out. Let me ask you this, just to get away from this for a second. What did you think of the other fights on the card? We had the opening fight between Jordan Mean and Matt Brown that was awesome.
That was a nuts fight, man. And I lived in Ohio for a couple of years of my life, right, in my road travels, and my girlfriend's from Columbus, so she's always rooting for Mr. Brown. Um, I
That's
I'm a
that's right. I remember that now. Last time we were in the arena.
Yeah, she that's like one of the few guys from Columbus, right? That's a name in the UFC. So she's gets pumped for that dude, and I can't help but be her sidekick. So that fight was nuts, man. It was just really nuts. And Matt Brown did what Matt Brown does. Jordan Mean, I mean, he had the wrong game plan going in there, brother. Let me tell you, because that's not the way you fight Matt Brown. He will play that game all day with you, and he usually comes out on top. That's a tough dude.
Yeah, the stand and trade till somebody falls game. Don't try that shit with Matt Brown, okay?
Yeah,
You're likely, when I think about it though, it would be a really fun fight. Nick Diaz would be a really fun fight for him.
it would be.
Or Nate would, just simply based on that type of style, because he likes guys that are gonna bring the fight to him. But I'll tell you what, Jordan Mean almost got that ass. He threw that body shot and almost finished him.
He did. He did. I mean, Jordan Mean is no joke, man. He was throwing power. He was throwing with bad intentions with every single punch, every single kick. That dude was getting it. He was going after it.
He's tough. I mean, I'll tell you that he's definitely tough, and that had to be a tough position to be put in. You know, young kid, first, on Fox, kickoff fight, UFC debut.
I know, man.
That can't be easy. That just can't be. I think about the nerves. I think it was Eddie Bravo who was telling me the other day. I was like, "Oh, I'm about to go compete in this. I'm about to go compete in this tournament, submission only." And he's like, "Oh yeah, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about this, blah 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 blah." And he's like, "Well, just think about this. Think about what the guy who has to walk out to that cage in the UFC feels like, who's never been out there before. Think about what that feels like, and a million people about to watch you get knocked the fuck out." I was
Yeah.
like, "Good point. You're right. I'm not that nervous anymore." So yeah, definitely is going to be, definitely is a tough position to be put in, um, for Jordan Mean, but you know, he kind of made up for it by having a really good fight.
Yeah. He did. He did. It was a good fight. What do you think, George? Let's kind of just get off this topic real quick. What do you think of our whole new setup here?
This is way better. I can't tell everybody how much better this whole setup is without. Uh, I want to. You know what? I'm not even going to mention their name because it's not even worth the publicity. But if you really want to hear the complaining about it, just go to the archives.
Yeah. Go to
Because
last week's show, right?
go to the archives. You'll hear plenty of bitching about it. But I'm not even gonna give those people airplay on here
Yeah.
because it's not even deserving of it. But this is way better, much
Here's
better.
here's the thing, right? 2 weeks ago, when we were on the air, I said I've had enough, right? We're gonna get off this platform, right? Last week, last week I was even more fed up. I was like, okay, that's it. Last week's show, we already had something in process to get on a new platform. This week is the debut of our platform. Mind you, I had to get rid of our intro music just because I wanted to run a test broadcast, full show live before I start playing with dials and stuff like that to make sure we can get this thing right. But we will get the intro music coming back soon. Uh, the cool thing is I'm getting a lot of feedback. Our buddies are texting us. We're getting tweets talking about the quality of the show, man. Like they're saying that we sound so much better this week, right? Which is awesome because that's what we want. And so far, so good. No drop calls. Everything's crystal clear, and we're streaming direct live on bjpenn.com. The next step is to get our other two radio shows on the same platform. Right now, we're the guinea pig. We're the flagship show. I'm the one that's testing this out for us. But we're going to get our Sunday show, Fisticuff Radio, on this platform. We're going to get our Monday night show, Late Night Cage Side, on this platform. And then we will be good to go.
Yeah, this is way better, and I think that everybody who's listening is going to enjoy it a lot better. The audio quality is 100 times better. Everything is, and you know, again, this is just the first time we're using this. This is the first time we're using this configuration, but it's only going to get better from here. And we've got some cool stuff planned. Intro and everything. We've got some cool stuff planned.
Yep.
So
Right now,
yeah.
right now, I'm pretty disappointed at Daniel Cormier, though. I will tell you, he was scheduled on the show 15 minutes ago. No, 13 minutes ago. Haven't heard from him. So, I told you before we jumped on live, George, that I hadn't heard from him today. Since Monday, we talked. Good to go. Yesterday, confirmed time slot. Confirmed good to go. Today, silence. I always like to talk to my guys. Day of show. Make sure they're coming on. We have a pretty good Rolodex at bjpenn.com, so if somebody's not going to show, we could always usually fill in the slot. But it looks like Mr. Cormier has kind of not come through for our audience today, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, definitely. I had some interesting things to talk to him about.
Me
What did you
too.
think? What did you think of his fight? Since we're talking about him.
Man, last week I believe I predicted Cormier to win. By the way, not to brag, but I did bat 1,000. Okay, but besides that, I predicted him to win. Even though Frank Mir is one of my most favorite fighters of all time, right? We established that last week. It was a boring fight, though, man. Cormier said that he laid an egg, I think is the term he used, that he kind of let the nerves get to him last weekend, and I expected a lot more from him. It didn't really seem like much of a fight. He used that clinch game to pretty much stall it out for 15 minutes. It looked like every time the two got in an exchange, Frank Mir won the exchanges. But I mean, those moments were few and far between because Cormier just pretty much smothered him against the cage for the whole fight.
I agree. I think Cormier used a good strategy to win the fight. It wasn't the most fun thing to watch, but he did use the correct strategy to win. I I also think that Frank Mir looked a lot better than, I mean, he didn't get taken down. He got stalled against the fence, but he didn't get taken down. Maybe Cormier didn't want to go to the ground, but he didn't really. He had some little flashes. Um, I- if anybody was expecting to see a new fighter just because he went to Greg Jackson's camp, I think that you were asking too much of a person who has been trained with a particular skill set for their entire career.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, not going to happen overnight. He's going to need two, three, he's going to need another year there before you're going to see the real benefits of Greg Jackson or whatever is going on over there, tailored to Frank Mir's game.
I mean, here's the real thing, and I really I feel strongly about this. Frank Mir had his moment, right? In fact, Frank Mir had two moments. He's held the belt twice, but I don't see him ever climbing that ladder and winning the belt again. As much as I would like him to, I mean, that would be awesome, right? And what a story. But, I mean, the guy has an Achilles heel. It's wrestlers. You know what I mean? He's not going to be able to do it. He's just not.
The it's well, every year that goes by, it's gonna get harder and harder. More difficult for him to pull off the better heavyweights, younger, more skilled. But I don't want anybody to make any to make any nonsense of it right now. Daniel Cormier is not a young guy by any stretch. Okay, he's not like 24 years. He's not Rory McDonald's age. Okay, he's also what, 33, 34 years old.
Maybe even older than that, man. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I,
You're
I
right,
you know,
though.
he's not a spring chicken either, okay? So at some point, what people are that's what I was trying to, tell people who were asking me, well, what do you think about this if he goes to 205? I'm like, well, Anderson cuts, and I'm like, well, Anderson's been cutting for that weight for a long time, and we're not talking about a guy, uh, we're talking about a guy, cutting, taking 35 pounds off. He had trouble making like 210 in the Olympics or something like that. So,
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. That he was in the 2008 Olympics. He was the captain, right? He was the Team USA captain. He missed weight. He didn't even make weight. He didn't even compete in those games. Up
admit
here we
now.
go. We got Cormier on the line. Let me connect him, George. Keep it going.
So we can ask him about this. It's gonna be interesting to see if he brings goes down a weight class, if he drops down to 205. I don't know. Actually think he's better at heavyweight. If somebody were to say, hey, where do you think he should fight? He's a faster heavyweight. He's got power at that weight. He can out wrestle people at that weight. He can hold people against the fence and use his offense and his defense. Why bother cutting the weight and going through all that? He's winning fights now. That's just how I see it, though.
All right. Well, like I said before, we have him on the line. We thought we weren't going to get him, but we got him. UFC on Fox 7 winner, Daniel Cormier. Mr. Cormier, thanks for joining us, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm down in Anaheim, and we're getting all prepared to go to Disneyland tomorrow.
Oh, you're in
Kind of lost track of time.
You're in my neck of the woods, man. How you joined SoCal?
It's okay. The weather's not too good today, man.
It's not,
bad,
is
actually.
it? I know, and it's Orange County.
Yeah, what's going on?
It's not supposed to rain in Southern California. I think Tony
No,
told
it
us
isn't.
that.
And it's definitely not supposed to look like this.
I know, man. Trust me. I promised my girl a day by the pool today, and lo and
Yeah,
behold,
didn't work out.
didn't work out, brother. No,
I was actually thinking the same thing. I was going to sit with my kid. He loves getting in the pool, and we're going to kind of hang out, but it just didn't work out, But it's all good. We still got a couple days. We got the rest of the week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So tell us, you're coming off a huge win. I'm gonna go ahead and say the biggest win of your career. 1, because it's a former UFC champion. 2, and it was your UFC debut. And 3, because you were on a national televised audience on Fox. How are you feeling today, man?
I feel pretty good, man. Like right after the fight, initially, I was pretty disappointed. I didn't think I fought my best fight, and I still don't think I fought my best fight. But I got the win. I beat a tough, and also I truly do believe I beat Frank Mir at his best. He was in better shape physically. Obviously, you could see that on him. And mentally, I think he was better. I think he was confident in the fact that he trained hard. So he came into the fight knowing that he wasn't going to gas. And I think I may have put too much stock in that he does gas and he tends to fold. So when he didn't, I just continued to do what I was doing before. Just really rough him up, beat him up, and waiting for that moment whenever he kind of said enough is enough and got out of the fight. But he didn't do that.
Right. That's true. That's a good point. You mentioned, the best Frank Mir, confident Frank Mir. He changed camps before the fight. Everything seemed to be going his way, for this fight. He took you very seriously. The thing that sticks out in my mind the most, not talking about the fight, but before the fight, at the weigh-ins interview, you seemed like a really fed up guy. Like you were done with the talk. He kept saying he was going to break your arm. You looked at him straight in the eye and said, "You're not going to break my arm, man." At that point, were you just done? Were you just ready to get in the cage?
It's like you just do so much. You're with the media constantly. I've done a ton of media for Strikeforce, but it was nothing like I experienced last weekend. I'd get up 8:00 in the morning and start doing radio interviews on one day, then going around driving doing interviews on the next day, and it was just constant media. And it was just hearing Frank talk, having to talk about Frank over and over again. It was just a ton of things, and just hearing it over and over, it was just enough. You kind of get fed up, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to fight and ready to try and deal with this the best way I can, and that's in the cage.
So let me ask you this. A lot of people may not have been happy with, the the action that took place in the fight, but there was actually from a wrestling perspective and a clinch perspective, there was actually a lot going on there. I mean, a lot of people don't train and don't understand that, but was that a good part of your strategy? Was to put him against the fence because people have seen him vulnerable there before. Shane Carwin put him there, and laid some heavy hands to him, and you kind of roughed him up over there too, for, a good bit. I thought for a while those knees were really gonna put an end to him. Did you really feel that was gonna be the way to beat Frank Mir?
It's with me, it's all about like how I train. I was in there really thinking I was going to fight him as a stand-up. I wasn't going to give him a chance. I don't want to give guys a chance in their best area, so I figured I wasn't going to give him a chance. The clinch wasn't necessarily what I intended to do, but I trained a lot with a guy named Daniel Cormier. He fought in Bellator finals, lost to Cole Conrad, and he's a big guy like Frank, southpaw. And a lot of the times we would clinch because he kept clinching me, and then I would just beat him up in the clinch. A lot of body work, a lot of knees, and you're gonna fight how you train. If you watch a lot of my fights, for Jeff Munson, I really did train a lot of just stand up, no takedowns at all, and that's how I fought. Bigfoot Silva was all stand up, no takedowns, and then Josh Thompson, I worked my overall game, and then I fought that way again. So it's really based on how I train the majority of the time. Whatever I do in training, I'm going to do in the fight. And even though it may not have been my intention to fight that much in the clinch, you know what, man, when I look back on it, I'm glad I did. Because there was improvement there. There was a lot of improvement I made in that position.
So was there any point where you thought like, like he's definitely going to try to yank me to the ground. He might even pull guard because really this is his best weapon. Were you worried about that? Maybe even a guard pull at that point for him to play off his back?
I trained for it. I trained for him pulling guard. I trained for him doing some tricky things, like things that would actually make me uncomfortable, but he allowed me to dictate the pace of the fight. It was very weird, because after a point, you got to realize that you're not doing so well, and something needs to change, and that change didn't come, and I don't know if that's necessarily because of the way I fought him, or he just was content with not getting finished in the fight.
All right, now Daniel, something I want to know is, you yourself said, you laid an egg. That I think that was your words at the post fight. Just right now, you said you weren't exactly 100% happy with your performance. As a fighter, do you go and do you talk to the bosses after the fight? Do you tell Dana White, hey man, sorry, I clinched him, and next one will be more exciting? I mean, what do you do?
Well, you just say, hey, this isn't, not the performance I wanted. It'll be better. It just takes a lot of anxiety, a lot of nerves that I've never really felt before, and
right.
Just all the build-up. This is really the first fight that there's been a ton of build-up for, and there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to compete. I mean, you saw guys coming to the UFC and not fight up to par, but they lose. So Hector Lombard comes to mind for sure.
Right.
Akiyama, when he came and fought Belcher, he had a bad fight, and a lot of people felt like he lost the fight. So there's a lot of guys that come into the UFC with a lot of hype, and they lay an egg, but they literally lay an egg and they don't win the fight. So there's got to be some positive in that. And then when you think about their opponents, think about it. Lombard came in and fought Tim Boetsch. Akiyama came in and fought Alan Belcher. I fought Frank Mir.
Right.
So we've got to kind of keep things in perspective a little bit.
Of course. Now, if your past resume didn't solidify you as a legitimate threat in that division, last Saturday's performance certainly did. But what do you do? I mean, you have a well documented relationship with the divisional champ Cain Velasquez, right? You guys are training partners, you teammates. Do you just ride this thing out and be content as the number 2 guy in the division, or I mean, what are your whole thoughts there? Because it's kind of an interesting situation.
Well, my thing is this, I want to be the best. I want to be the champion, and if that's not, I'm not going to just always be the second guy and be okay with that. I have to find a way to be the champion, and that's the only reason why I've talked about going down to the 205-pound division. This fight might not have been pretty. Honestly, the fight might not have been pretty. Randy Couture made a career of it. But the truth of the matter is, if that is the fight plan, I feel like I can implement that game plan on a lot of guys. Where you really rough them up and wrestle them. And if I was able to take Frank down a little more, I think it would have been a more viewer friendly fight. I couldn't really take him down because I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not as comfortable in the jiu-jitsu as I need to be. So I've got to do more jiu-jitsu so that I don't give away my biggest advantage in these fights, which is my wrestling. When I limited myself in this fight by not being able to wrestle because I was so wary of his jiu-jitsu.
Right. Well, that's a smart move. You control the fight for the whole 15 minutes. I don't think anybody questions that. And the fact that you played it smart, nobody can hold that against you, man. I mean, you went out there and you did what you had to do.
I thought. This is a fight that I needed to get out of my system. I am not afraid to sit there and fight and bang. Obviously, Frank. He's a great fighter. I really do respect that he came in there in such good shape. He was tired, but I think that was more of the body punching and the knees. He took a lot of damage to the body, and even though there's a lot of grinding on that cage. It's very taxing and very exhausting.
So, let me ask you this. We were just talking about this earlier. And you alluded to it just now, a drop to 205. I was saying, why drop? It just doesn't make any sense. You're winning fights at heavyweight. You're not. You really haven't had anybody kind of like put you through the ringer to where you'd have to second guess that. So. And I can't think I can't think of a good reason to drop other than to get a belt at 205, other than just to get a belt at 205. And so how difficult would that weight cut be at this point? Because it can't be getting any easier as the older you get.
No. It would be very tough. It would be very tough. It would take a lot of discipline. It would take help from people. I'd have to use my resources to make it easy as possible. It would take a lot of hard work and a change in my life. I'd have to make a lifestyle change. I'm 235. I carry extra weight. That's no secret. But, I work hard. I work hard, and I'm just going to have to be very committed to doing it in a safe and healthy way. It's going to be hard, but I will not try and do it as I did in wrestling. I'm sorry, my kids. I will not try and do it like I did in wrestling. I've got to try and do it the safest and best way possible. It'll be very tough, but at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to be the UFC champion. So if that's what I need to do, then that's what I'm going to have to do.
So do you kind of have you kind of made up your mind with it as far as like, well, yeah, I think I should just go after, John Jones. It's just, there, I guess from that respect, there, it would make sense. Chael's getting a title shot right now. You're on a hell of a streak yourself, 12-0. So you could probably walk right down you would essentially. Dana even said you'd walk right down into that division and get a title shot. Is that something you're just looking to do, right? Just looking for the outcome this weekend and say, hey, that's right, I'll just take the winner.
Well, I'm not sure yet. I have Dana and I are going to talk tomorrow. We're going to discuss what's next, and he's going to give me some ideas, shoot some things at me, and I'm going to either I'm going to grab onto him or I'm going to bat him away. We're going to figure it out. Me and my management are going to get with him, and we'll see. I don't necessarily know what I'm going to do. If they offer me a big fight at heavyweight, I'll definitely fight at heavyweight. I want big fights. You see, the one thing was that I was prepared for the big fight with Frank Mir. I loved everything that surrounded it, but it brought a little more pressure. So now that I've dealt with that pressure, I still want that. I want that feel, the big fight feel, where I'm fighting in co-main events and main event. So whether that be at the upper weight division, if it's at 205, I want to entertain the idea. I'm not making any commitment to anything yet, but I want to think about it. I want big fights. Big fights are great. A huge competition there's nothing like it, man. The emotion of it, the butterflies, the preparation, how hard you work. There's nothing like it, man. I just want big-time competition.
You bursted George's bubble there, Dan, because he was really looking for the juicy quote. Like he was looking for the I'm gonna go down and fight John Jones. That's what he was fishing
I'm
for.
gonna kick his ass. That's what I was waiting for.
You know, even and the thing is, even if I was to decide to go down to 205 pounds, I know it's going to be a tough weight cut, and I would want to maybe fight someone first. I really would want to fight someone first, because guess what? If I go down there and I fight, and I don't feel very good, I'll have to go back up to heavyweight.
True.
I have to be in a place where, but I don't want to be in there with John Jones and not feel my legs, because then the guy's great. He's going to take you out real good, and a lot of guys can do that, but he can wrestle. And if I don't feel good and can't take him down because the weight cut was too hard on me, then what are you going to do?
From the way he's talking, he might be fighting you at heavyweight. I think he's got some pretty lofty goals of wanting to go up to heavyweight and compete against the bigger guys himself. So you may not have to go down if it goes on too much longer.
Exactly. So we don't know. I don't know when it's going to happen. I've always said, I think at some point in my career we're going to stand across the cage from each other, and we're going to put on a hell of a show.
You know what, Daniel? I have a question for you, man. You're training out of
Mm-hmm.
You're training out of AKA. You guys currently boast Cain Velasquez on your roster, right? A guy like Gray Maynard, who was just announced if he beats T.J. Grant, he's a #1 contender at lightweight. Josh Thompson, who just won against Nate Diaz on the same card as you. The energy has to be superb there right now, because AKA at one point, you guys have had your ups and your downs, but right now it's been all up. So what is that like? What is, as a team? I know you're one of the coaches there. You're one of the team. You're one of the leader guys. So what is it? What's the energy like at AKA?
Oh, it's great, man. It was because nobody ever lost track of the ultimate goal. It's so easy for teams, people, to lose track when stuff starts to go sideways. We lost Koscheck, man, a guy that had been there forever.
Right.
And, Fitch lost a couple fights in a row, our team captain for a long time. But nobody let John hang his head. Everybody was supportive. We had guys moving in, Gray Maynard, Tyson Griffin, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Thomson, was getting ready for his big fight. Myself, Rocco's going to fight in the main event of the UFC. Obviously, Cain's the champion. And that's just our UFC guys. Those aren't even our guys that are up and coming guys who are in the gym every day working their tails off to get to where we are today, man. It's a great environment. No amount of negativity can break up a great training situation, and all of our guys are fully aware of that. There are more guys that want to come into AK right now, and eventually we're going to start turning them away.
So at this point in your career, you have all these high-level training partners. You've got, that camp is pretty much one of, if not the best camp in MMA.
I mean, honestly, when people tend to kind of want to not say AK is the best training camp in MMA, and I don't necessarily understand why. I mean, I know Jackson has a great camp. I gained a lot more respect for Greg Jackson watching the Fox show, because he broke me down as spot on as anyone ever has in terms of me pacing fights, fight IQ. I was like, man, I told Javier, I go, he's good, man. But all of our guys are homegrown guys. I mean, outside of Maynard and all these new guys that come in, Velasquez, myself, Fitch, Thompson, Rockhold, all these guys, we all started as novices, no fight experience at AKA. That's something special about that gym that most people kind of tend to ignore a little bit.
That's true. Even our boss, BJ Penn, his first MMA
Even
team
BJ.
was AKA. That's right, man.
And that's not BJ. Frank Shamrock. Frank Shamrock was the man he was training out of AKA. Bobby Southworth was another guy, Strikeforce champion out of AKA. Kyle Kingsbury, Mike Kyle. All these guys were homegrown AKA guys that made it to the highest levels of our sport.
That's true. Very
Paul
good point.
Bonatello.
Yeah, you guys have a really deep and rich history, and that history is not only past, it's current, it's present. You guys are making history.
Yeah.
So That's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
awesome, man.
That is awesome. Daniel, you know,
Thank you.
you called in late. We had a bunch more questions for you, brother. But I thank you for making good on it and getting us on. You know, today. We'd love to have you on again. Thank you for entertaining us. And
Whenever you guys want me, man, just let Heidi know, and I'll be on. You know, I love talking to you guys. You guys got a great show, great website, and I appreciate you always having me on.
thanks, Daniel, and congratulations on your win, man. Best of luck.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
There he is, George.
Yeah, DC. Yeah, man, I like him at heavyweight. You want to see him at light heavyweight?
You know, I think whatever he's gonna do what's right for him. I think that the interesting situation is that Cain Velasquez is champion. Will Cain Velasquez stay champion though? I mean, you can't for him. He has to look out for his own career and while he may not want to fight his teammate, and I don't think that's ever going to happen, right? But there's no guarantees that Kane's going to hold that top spot, you know. So who knows? But I mean, it's impossible to predict what the future holds. What if Daniel Cormier decides to go down to the light heavyweight division, and simultaneously Cain Velasquez was to happen to lose his title? You know, it would make that move and that sacrifice be completely null and void, where he could have stayed in that division and then captured gold. I mean, you just don't know.
I think that um, I think that he's better he's better at heavyweight. I think he'd be a better heavyweight. I think he'd be more comfortable. I don't want to say he's better because we haven't seen him fight at light heavyweight, but I think he'd be more comfortable as a heavyweight. You know, cutting that weight is just going to be a pain in the ass.
I mean,
He's the faster fighter.
that's the one thing I was gonna say. He will lose his speed advantage at light heavyweight, and I think that that is one of the biggest things he has going for him outside of his skill set and his wrestling, you know, pedigree. His speed gives guys fits at heavyweight. You know what I mean? And for him to drop down, not only is it the lifestyle change, like you said, but I mean he's getting to give up some of his advantages. You know?
No, for sure. I don't think he probably won't make a decision one way or another until after the May 25th fight between Cain Velasquez and Bigfoot Silva. If Bigfoot wins, you know, I can't see how Daniel doesn't swoop right in there and say, "Let me get that. Let me get that." Because Daniel, you know, he soundly defeated Bigfoot. His training partner did too. Kane later on did that but uh, Cormier did it first.
Yeah.
So, um,
I mean, Cormier, yeah, he crushed Bigfoot, dude. I mean, like he freaking knocked that fool out. You know? I mean, Cormier's undefeated. He's beaten everybody he's faced. Um,
he's going to be a tough fight for anybody, man.
he
Anybody.
really is. I mean, you look at it like I kind of want to see the Cain Velasquez fight. You know what I mean? Even though, like I said, that'll probably never happen. But it would probably be a very competitive fight.
Yeah. I, you know, it's one of these fights where you know we were talking. I think we talked about it off the air one time where training partners. You can't even gauge your progress off of training partners because they already know everything you're doing. So you can't even gauge your progress off of them because they've already seen your offense, they've seen your defense, they know the holes, how to exploit them, they know where they're weak and they know where you exploit. And it makes for a really weird fight because the dynamic between guys that have just sparred so much, they already know their next move. Um, I don't know that you know, I just don't know I don't know how compelling of a fight it is to me. I mean, it is in the sense that they're training partners, but it's a weird fight because they've trained together so much, they've had so much ring time together that I don't know. It could be really bad also.
Yeah, probably so. You know.
Well, I guess we'll find out soon enough if it's ever going to happen.
Who are the teammates? Or we just saw somebody fight. Who was it? It was Faber and Jorgensen.
that's right. And you know, I mean, I don't know. Did Scotty and Uriah were they like he wasn't like a part of Team Alpha Male though. These guys, Kane and Daniel, that's like a really you know they're their main training partners. It would be like Fitch and Koscheck fighting. and how people wanted to see that at the time. They're like, oh, I want to see Fitch and Koscheck fight. But it was just like it was a weird dynamic. They're like, oh, if you want to see us fight, come into the gym. You can watch us fight. You can watch us fight every day.
Right, right, right. Well, let's shift gears here, George, because uh, we've beaten the UFC on Fox 7 card to death now. At this point, we've had the winners of the card on the show. We're gonna fast forward a little bit, get a new guy on, a featherweight contender who's really on a hot streak right now. He's fighting Dennis Siver in July. It is Cub Swanson. Cub, how you doing, man?
I'm pretty good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. And sorry about the delay. Mr. Cormier called in late, and we had to shift some things around. But thanks for your patience, brother. We really appreciate it.
That's cool. You guys can go ahead and big time me. It's cool.
George, that's what Cub said when I was texting him while we got Cormier on the line. He goes, tell him stop big timing people. And I was like, oh, ouch. But yeah, he wasn't big timing. He said he was at Disneyland with his family or getting ready to go to Disneyland. He just lost track of time. So it happens.
All right, that's a good excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, you put it off on the kids, and see, we got a little bit of got a little bit of favoritism there because you put it on the kids. So you have Dennis Seaver. You have Dennis Seaver coming up, or I won't say coming up, but this July. You're on quite a streak, 4 fights in a row. What do you think about this fight when it was offered to you?
He's a tough dude. He comes forward. He's got some tricky stuff. He's got a pretty good gas tank for how big he is. But I like the fight because he's down to throw and I'm down to throw. So that's the kind of fight that I like. At this point in my career, I want to book the fights that are going to be exciting for the crowd as well as myself because sometimes I get bored in there. So I would just want the exciting matches, and this one is one of them.
Did you think that you were? I thought that you might be fighting for the title next. I didn't think that you were going to have to get the 5th fight in a row because you've pretty much picked off a lot of the best guys in the division, or really some big names. Pearson, Oliveira, Poirier. All good wins. 3 of the 4 wins on your streak have all been by stoppage. Also, did you kind of figure yourself to be getting a title match before you were offered the fight with Seaver?
I did. But I mean, the one thing that's plaguing me is the loss to Lamas. But I mean, that just grinds me because I was beating the crap out of him before I got caught in that submission. So. I don't know why everyone's on that Korean zombie hype. He hasn't really fought anybody, and so I mean I thought I was next. And same with Chad Mendez is asking for a title shot. He hasn't fought anybody recently. He's been getting easy fights. So I thought I've been fighting the toughest guys and I've been putting them away. And I thought that would push me closer to a title fight. So I'm just gonna keep trying to win fights and wait for my turn.
It's funny. It's funny you said that because that's two of the 2 people you mentioned are the 2 main people that get talked about the most when it comes to who's getting the next title fight. I guess Lamas' name is thrown in there too, but mostly Mendez and Korean Zombie. Do you feel like you're being overlooked a little bit? You've also rattled off a lot of good wins.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I said, Mendez is always right there, but I mean, he hasn't been fighting anybody, man. And in the Zombie, really, his wins don't impress me. So I think, you got to give it to the guy who's been fighting the toughest fights and finishing fights. I would have liked to finish my last one, but Poirier was a lot tougher than I anticipated, and trying to, be the first one to knock out Dennis Seaver this next fight. So I'm just gonna keep doing me, and hopefully the UFC will see what I'm doing and give me a title shot.
So, before this 4-fight win streak, you had like, won one, you lost one, you drop one, you lose one. What exactly changed? Because it just seems like a switch flipped in you, and you turned into you just were like, oh, I'm taking fools out in this cage now. Something just changed. Was there something that had gone on that that a switch just flipped in you, and you're like, well, yeah, here we go. This is my time. It's here. Here it comes.
It's pretty much a combination of things. I'd just say the biggest thing is confidence. It's really tough when you're going up and down with the injuries or losses. I had a lot of tough breaks, and it's hard to get momentum going. And you need momentum in the big league. These are all tough fights, and you need that momentum to say, okay, I'm on the right track. And I kept progressing as a fighter, but I was never 100% comfortable, like, with everything, every aspect of my game. And putting them all together. So now I'm comfortable, I'm confident, and I know what I'm capable of. And, just mixed with a little bit of hate, trying to knock people out, trying to hurt people.
All right. It definitely shows. Like I said, 3 of the last 4 of your wins were rattled off by stoppage. A lot of knockouts. It just really seemed like something really switched for you. Like 2012 rolled around, and you were like, "This is my year. I'm taking this. I'm coming after it in this division, and let people know that Cub Swanson is one of the top guys in the division." So it really has been an impressive run. But when you've been studying Aldo for a while, so I assume that you've been looking at that, as he's been finishing guys and ruling the division for a while. Have you kind of picked apart how you match up with Aldo if you were to face him
Again?
Oh, definitely. That's a fight I've been wanting back since the first time we fought. I didn't really feel like I had a chance, to really do anything. He got the first strike, and it was a good one. I took his best shot, and unfortunately, it cracked my eyebrow bone and couldn't fight anymore. But it didn't knock me out, so I know I can take. I can take it.
and just so everyone
a little bit more focused.
Yeah, and just so everyone realizes, I do realize that you have fought him before, but the fight, the way that the fight transpired, it just seemed like maybe you didn't really get a chance to show what you got.
It was a short fight.
Yeah. So with lightning strike twice.
I feel like I owe the fans that fight, and I owe myself that fight. And I know that it was something we both looked forward to when we matched up, weighed in, everything. We were like same size. It was crazy. We just matched up so well, and I feel like he got the better of me that night. But I've grown so much, and I feel like I've earned the right to get a rematch. I've put in my dues, and I've been waiting patiently, and I've taken the hardest fights in the WC and the UFC, and I'm ready.
Cub, what do you think about the lightweights coming in? And it seems like more and more lightweights drop down, and they get the consideration for the title shot against Aldo in the featherweight division, and it kind of seems like this unclimbable ladder for you guys who are the standouts in featherweights, who have made your name and laid your career down in that division. But here they come, these guys from the UFC, drop down, boom, title shot. Drop down, boom, title shot. I mean, what is your thought on all that?
I welcome them. The 155-pound division has been in the UFC longer. The guys in it, are a little bit more popular. And, the 55ers from the WC came over and got a chance to prove themselves, and they've done very well. And the 45ers didn't, because that was the whole division. So with these 55ers dropping down, they're bigger names than a lot of us, and it just brings more credibility to the weight class, and I'm up for the challenge. Poirier was a 55er, Charles Oliveira was a 55er.
Pearson.
Ross Pearson was a 55er,
Right.
and Seaver was a 55er. So, I mean, whatever. Don't bother me.
That's true. You've had your experience with these guys dropping down, I guess. I wasn't, I know your record, but I wasn't even really thinking about it from that standpoint. Let's talk about this fight with Seaver a little bit more. I imagine that this fight takes place on the feet. I'm sure you probably are preparing for that too. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, how do you see it breaking down?
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be on the feet majority, but I mean, if you watch his last fights, he does shoot takedowns, and he'll try to. I'm sure he'll try to get on top of me at some point and try to land some elbows and just grind on me a little bit, just so he's winning the rounds, because he's not really finishing anybody. So he's going out there for a unanimous decision win. But I'm gonna try to knock his head off, and if it goes to the ground, I do have a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I might throw in a submission or two.
Yeah, yeah. So that's an area, I guess, that you're, he's been submitted. He's got 8 losses. 5 of the 8 losses are by submission. You are a pretty good black belt. Is that maybe an area you can exploit on him? You think that you're better on the ground than Dennis Seaver?
Definitely. He's definitely compact, strong. So that's going to be something I'm going to work for. Luckily, I got good, strong guys like Diego Brandao and some other guys from the gym that I'll work with, even like a Diego Sanchez, Ike Valley Flag. I'm going to look for those big, strong bodies to play the role for me. So I've been working my ground game, my wrestling, a lot lately, ever since I've been, getting the knockouts, because I know people are going to try to take me down. And it's something I didn't work for a while because of injuries. But I'm full, back to full health, and I've been working it, so I'm ready for the fights to go anywhere.
Let me ask you this, Cub. I think it's for a long time Greg Jackson has really bragged on you as a guy who can take the fight anywhere. One of the best guys in the stable, and it seems like, as George commented earlier, you're on a 4-fight win streak now. It seems like you've kind of finally settled into that idea, and not just just like more in your performances. It's kind of showing that all of Greg Jackson's praises over the years, they're finally coming to fruition. How important is it for an athlete to have somebody like that who believes in you so much, even when you're kind of flip-flopping wins and losses? Because it seems like now everything that Greg has told the media and told the press and told the world about Cub Swanson, it seems to be pretty accurate now.
Yeah, I mean, he just saw something in me that, a lot of other my coaches have seen, and something that took me a little bit while longer to believe myself, and, that's, very true what they say about it being mental. At this point in my career, I think before I cared too much and put too much pressure on myself, and now I just go out there and I just try to fight, have fun. And I know I put in the hard work. I know that the talent that I have because of my hard work. And with my coaches, I have the best coaches and their belief in me. I just go out there and do it now. I don't care anymore. I know I'm going to fight hard, and I leave it all in the cage.
That's awesome. I've always been fascinated by that because, even from the WEC days, and obviously it's my job to try to catch as many MMA fights as I can, and I've been covering the sport for the better part of a decade now. But when Greg Jackson talks, we kind of have to listen to him because this is one of the most renowned, world's best coaches that there is, right? So I think that finally seeing you on this streak, beating the guys that you're beating inside the UFC, to me it kind of validates it, because I've always you always want to see guys do good, and even though this is our first time talking, I've been a fan and seen the potential, but it's kind of great to see you kind of just be so successful going forward. Once you entered the UFC, I mean, you've been on a tear, man. So it's pretty cool.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And, like I said, it's been very fulfilling for me. With these injuries, had my face broke, my jaw wired shut. I got 5 plates in my face and hands, and all that crap that I had to go through just almost giving up and being at this point where I'm at right now. It's like, I'm glad I stuck it out. You know, it's worth it. The 10 years of scrap I put again, on my body and my family through this just ups and downs of the sport, and it's worth it now. And I can honestly say that I'm happy and I'm proud of myself.
That's awesome, man. Let me ask you this, kind of switching gears from the fight thing for a second. How long have you been in Albuquerque? You've been in there. You've been out there for a while, right? And the reason why I ask you is because you have the SoCal tattooed across your chest. I'm a California guy. I have a California tattooed across my back. So I'm just curious, how long have you been and how long have you been out there in Albuquerque, man?
I live in Palm Springs, California.
Okay, you actually live in California.
I travel back and forth.
Okay.
Yes. I train with the Diaz brothers, the boxing Diaz brothers, and Tim Bradley at a boxing gym, and I have my own gym here. And I travel out to Greg Jackson's quite often, and usually during my camps I come back and forth every 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And ever since I lost Aldo, I switched to the Jackson camp, and I split my time between there and here. And that's why my hands have progressed so much, because I train with nothing but world champion boxers. And when I go out to Albuquerque, I train with the best of the best. So that's why I've had so much progress.
Well, there we go. I learned something new today. I had just assumed that you made home base Albuquerque, and I was going to ask you what it's like. I've been out there, man, but it's kind of it's all deserty. It's not California. We have some nice scenery, and especially in Palm Springs. I mean, you're one of like the most sought after little vacation destinations we have out here. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a worse desert here in the summer. It gets to 120. And we suffer, but I love it, because training in 120-degree weather is only for the toughest dudes there is. So Albuquerque is a crazy place, but we have a good family team, and we all, that's all we do is hang out together and train. So that's my second home.
Let me ask you a question that we're talking, since Pedro was talking about validating things. For much of the last 18 months, maybe even 2 years, we've heard like a lot of complaints. Or at least I've always heard like complaints like about Jackson's fighters. They don't finish fights. But you were like one of the fighters. I'm sitting there like, well, that's funny, because didn't Cub Swanson just knock out another guy? Didn't he just knock out another guy? And so as these talks are going on, and I don't know whether you pay attention to the internet or any of this shit or not, but if you had listened to any of it, as you're having these performances and you're like, well, I'm knocking fools out, are you like kind of saying, well, what are they talking about? We are finishing guys. Here I am finishing opponents.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely, annoying. I had to sit up there, at the podium at the press conference when they were talking crap about Clay when he fought Gray Maynard, and Clay was one of my main training partners that fight. And I happened to get a good finish, and his fight went the distance. And, it's very hard, because these are my teammates. These are guys that I bleed and I sweat with, and they're the guys that help push me. So, I take it very offensively when you talk about my friends and basically my second family. So, anybody who starts talking crap about my team, I'll talk crap back. Like Chris Lieben, was recently crying about, him losing. And, that was his own damn fault, because he's never in shape, talking about my team. And any other guy, I've been pretty disappointed at some of guys that I'm fans of start talking about my team. And it's like, but, chill out,
Let me ask you this, that you bring that up. There's another member that is trying to get back into your camp, and it's apparently they said they not welcome back at the Jackson camp. Talking about Melvin Gillard, what were your thoughts about that whole situation? Do you feel like, oh, you should just let him back in? I mean, he had a lot of success with you guys, or was he just not a good fit for the team?
Yeah, I don't think it was a good fit, and I wasn't even there for that decision. I was here in Palm Springs, and I just got word about it. But like I said, I think the coaches were hurt when he left, and I know there were other reasons, but nobody there has any ill will towards him. Wish him the best, and it's just I don't think it was a good fit.
So, just if I want to get a last minute prediction here from you, when you look at your fight with Seifer, how does it end?
Knockout second round.
Knockout second round. You heard it right there.
There it is. All right, Cub. We're gonna have to get off the phone here and let you go. But real quick, man, George asked for a prediction on your fight. I want to ask a prediction on this weekend's main event. Your teammate John Jones versus Chael Sonnen. This is one of the bigger fights for your camp going on right now. So, how do you see it playing out, man? Before we let you go, one last thought.
John Jones, one-sided ass whooping.
Perfect. Well, Cub, man, thanks for coming on, man, and thank you so much for your patience while we had to deal with Cormier's lateness. I hope we can get you back on when it gets closer to fight, and we can get an update on how camp went and everything like that. We'd love to have you on again, brother.
Yeah, no problem. Just hit me up. I appreciate everything, guys.
All right. Thanks, Cub, and best of luck, man.
Thank you again.
Later. All right, Georgie. Stuff's going pretty good tonight, man.
Yes, yeah, I like our new setup. Our new setup is like everything. The audio quality is really good. I hear the callers coming in. Everything's nice and smooth. And I almost mentioned the old platform's name again, but I'm not giving them airplay. Damn it, it's not happening. Won't mention their name.
The only thing I don't like about the way we run this show is I feel like there's always more to talk about with these guests. When we're booking the show, we book them kind of in like 30-minute increments, right? But man, I always want to keep talking to these guys. I wanted to keep talking to Daniel and Josh and even Cub. He was just getting into the rhythm. Everybody's just getting into the rhythm, and then it's time to let him go. And I don't really know. I think a 30-minute interview is appropriate, but it just seems like it's never enough. That's just my
maybe we'll experiment sometime with a different format where we do something like how Joe Rogan does on his podcast, where we're doing video and have somebody in studio where we can talk to them for longer. I don't know what everybody thinks about something like that. If that's, a lot of times, we're just getting started. And if anybody is just listening for the first time, we've had a lot of these interviews like this where really we can dive in deep. Like Mike Dolce, we had a really awesome conversation with Mike Dolce. We've had a lot of really good guests where we weren't just talking about current events in MMA or what's your strategy for your next fight. There's a lot of guys that have been around the sport for a long time. There's some interesting stories that you'll hear that only they have the stories for. You won't know them, and a lot of people won't ask. And I like the history of the sport, and I like to hear stories like that. I like to hear the crazy stuff.
Yeah, definitely, man. That was a good interview with Cub. I think we're on a pretty good roll today. Next and last on the lineup, we're going to close out the show with a guy who fought about a week and a half ago against Cole Miller. We have Bart Palaszewski on. Bart, are you there, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not much. Thank you so much. I have to apologize for the delay again. Mr. Cormier kind of made us shuffle our lineup here tonight, but thank you very much, brother, for having the patience and sticking it out with us tonight.
Oh, not a problem at all, guys.
All right, so if I'm not mistaken, are you in Chicago right now?
Yeah.
Right. How's it going?
Well, kind of suburbs.
Okay, how's it going out there for you, bro? And unfortunately, you lost your last fight, but what's been going on? How's the post-fight atmosphere?
I'm all right. It sucks. I did come out of the fight with a license, so I'm kind of glad I'm not being ignorant about the whole thing. So I'm happy about that. But yeah, it sucks. But I'm semi-busy, man, so I had to jump right into it. I can't let stuff hold me back. So just trying to heal up after the last fight and gonna get after it again.
All right. Now you obviously. I I believe you even said it. Like what a dumb mistake you made in that fight, right? Now I'm not calling your mistake dumb, but I'm just trying to use your words in a more polite way. You got caught in that fight with Cole Miller. You're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You got submitted. I mean, how disappointed? And I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but how disappointed were you in your performance?
I was pissed. It was one of those stupid mistakes. I came about, I get caught for one, but for years and years I've been getting up that way in training, and guys never caught me in a choke because when we do MMA sparring, we usually wear 16-ounce gloves, and it's hard to get a choke, and obviously, and when we wrestle, I get up that way because we don't really go for chokes when we wrestle. You know what I mean? So I kind of just got comfortable, and Jeff always bitched at me not to do it. He goes, "You're gonna fucking get up that way in the fight one day. You're gonna get choked." I was like, "I'll be fine. I'll be fine."
Oh.
And sure enough, it's gonna happen in the fight. So, yeah, it sucks because he's been telling me that, and I was just like, just kicking it aside, not listening to my coach, being a bit of a douchebag.
Oh, that sucks. That sucks, man. That sucks. But you sounds like you're taking it in stride. We've been trying to get you on this show for the past couple weeks, and we keep having scheduling issues. But thankfully, we got you on today. Before you fought Cole Miller, George and I actually predicted that you were going to take the fight. And it kind of looked like before the finish that the fight was kind of going in your way in the way you needed it to.
Yeah, I mean, everything was going according to plan. I really didn't think he was going to shoot. That really caught me off guard. And like I said, I just made a mistake. He capitalized on it, He's a solid dude. He's a good fighter, obviously. He's been killing it for a while in the UFC. He slipped up a little bit, like, many people do, but he's back on track now. So, but, hats off to Carl, man. He's a solid dude.
Well, we broke the fight down. And like Pedro was saying, we both picked you. I just, when I was breaking the fight down, and I don't know whether you saw this from your perspective when you were thinking of him as an opponent, but I just looked at your record and your experience with other guys who, Cole Miller has got solid jiu-jitsu. That's really his primary weapon in his fights is his jiu-jitsu and his ground game, and I had just seen you on the mat with a lot of other talented submission grapplers, even in recent memory, guys like Hioki, did you look at it kind of like that, like saying, hey, look, I really just need to worry about his ground, really, because that's his primary weapon? Was that what you were kind of thinking going into the fight as well, or were you kind of looking at it from a different perspective?
No, I definitely prepared for a ground game too. Obviously not good enough, but no, I really thought he was gonna stand with me. Last couple of fights, he banged it out with guys, and I've seen him jump guard. I didn't see him shoot. I mean, like I said, it just caught me off guard. I knew his jiu-jitsu was solid, obviously coming from a great camp, and he's pulled off some good submissions in the past. I mean, I knew he was well-rounded and his jiu-jitsu was solid. So, but he likes to stand and bang. So that's where it caught me off guard, and we really got into it. And we threw down for a few minutes. I kind of got into that mode, you can say, and in my head I was like, holy shit, I'm kicking his ass. I'm doing good. Everything's going according to plan. And then when he shot, it just caught me off guard. I thought he was going to be able to scramble up fast enough, and he kind of slowed me down. And when he got that choke on, I felt okay. I felt like I peeled the first one, and he switched it, and it just felt like it was crushing my windpipe, man. It was something else. Because chokes, I can kind of fight them. I mean, everybody can, but this just hurt. That's what it was, man. It straight up hurt.
So, what do you like? Again, you didn't look like you had didn't really take any punishment in the fight. It was just kind of like the choke was let go. You got up and you're like, fuck, how did I get, of all things, like can we please just hit the reset button and start over, because this wouldn't happen twice, And it just looked like, it kind of looked like a rolling jiu-jitsu session where you're like, you roll with somebody for 10 minutes and you're like, somebody finally gets caught and they're like, fuck, let's go again. it was kind of like
Yeah.
that. So when you look back, like when you look at it now, I'm sure you're fine. You didn't take any damage in the fight. Are you just looking to get right back in there immediately? Would you jump right back on the horse immediately and try to fill in for somebody if that was the case, or?
No. I banged up my shin actually pretty bad. I got some. It's only soft tissue damage, but my leg's pretty banged up between same spot that I busted it open on Tyson when I fought Tyson. So my leg's pretty jacked up right now, and I actually have a small tear in my ligament in my hand, so I can't be punching or making a fist or moving my hand for a while. So, I got to take probably about 4 or 6 weeks off from squeezing and hitting and all that jazz. So I'm going to be just taking it easy, maybe doing some cardio, grappling with some, flow grappling or doing some technique, but nothing crazy. I'm getting old, man. My hand and my leg's got to heal first, and I got a second baby due July, so I'm gonna have to spend some time at home too. I'm not gonna be able to skip it out and training, 3-4 hours a day.
All right. Well, first of all, Bart, you're not old, brother. Okay, because if you're old, then I'm really old, man. Okay, so let's not go. Let's not go there. Okay. And if you're old, then I'm really old. Then George is really, really old because George is our senior by far on this show. Okay. But
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And I'm not going to tolerate that kind of shit. So don't even say that.
Let me ask you this though,
Old
Bart.
Man Rivers.
Let me ask you this, Bart. When you made your UFC debut, you made it against Tyson Griffin, right? This was one of the elite guys from 155 pounds coming down. You knocked him out in the first round, and I was like, I remember that fight, man. And Tyson Griffin's been a tough opponent for anybody he's faced. You made it look easy, and I was like, holy crap, Bart's the real deal. Here he is in the UFC, knocking out Griffin. This guy has a shot, but then boom, you drop 1, 2, 3 in a row. The third being Cole Miller,
Yeah.
and this is kind of a tough question, But where do you go from here? Obviously, fighters worry about getting cut in the UFC, especially going down 3 in a row. How do you keep your job? How do you come back from this setback?
I have no idea. I'm praying. I'm hoping for the best. Obviously, I hope UFC keeps me, or heal up and you just wait for the call. See if they do need a last minute replacement when I'm good to go. But if not, I don't know, man. Get a couple of fights. Hopefully, finish some dudes and get back in the UFC. I mean, that's all you can do. You can only do so much. You can only do you can only do as much as you can and control the things you can't control. Certain things you just cannot control, and I'm just kind of going with the flow, I guess. Just doing my thing and hope it all works out at this point.
Right. Well, I mean, we are a week and a half removed from the fight. In my experience, if the UFC makes cuts, they make them in the same week as a fight. You're probably, I would say you're probably, you're gonna get another fight, but mentally.
Don't jinx me.
No.
Don't say anything.
I'm not. Okay. Okay. I'll rephrase that a little bit. How do you mentally prepare yourself for the next fight? Because you know now, brother, that you're in a must-win situation. How do you overcome these obstacles, and what have you learned from these last 3 fights where you can go forward and come back?
Well, the beauty with my next fight, I literally have nothing to lose. So coming out guns blazing, and I mean, all 3 camps, dude, I had awesome training. I had, everything was on point. Just, there were mistakes made, bottom line, but just gonna, kill it. I, put it behind me. I mean, I can't do anything about it. Just gotta put it behind me. I'm gonna fucking kick it hard during camp once the fight's set, and like I said, I got nothing to lose. So when I go out there, I'm gonna go fucking guns blazing, balls to the wall.
Well, I was going to ask you earlier, and since Pedro was talking about things, you've had such such a long career, you've beaten a lot of guys, different guys. You fought the who's who in the game, but when you look at the lay of the land, a lot of these guys are in positions now. There's some guys that are in positions now to fight for titles that you've beat. I look at your record. I'm like, he beat Anthony Pettis. Do you look at that? Do you look at that and you're like, man, that I could be that guy fighting right there because I've beaten a lot. I've beaten these guys. I've beaten the Tyson Griffin. I've beaten the Anthony Pettis. There's not that many people that can say that.
No, I don't look at it that way. No, it's stylistically styles make fights, and it's so true. You might fight and win one fight, or say I did beat Pettis. I mean, it was so many years ago. The guy's a fucking killer, but then he just finished Cowboy. But then when I trained with Cowboy, he's such a big motherfucker, man. I had the hardest time with the dude. You know what I mean? I would hate to fight him. So you can't really look at it that way. Styles do make fights, and everybody's going to match up differently with somebody else. So, I know. I guess to answer your question, no, I don't look at it that way. I just kind of do my own thing. I care about me kind of deal.
So,
I guess I sound like a dick, but...
No. I'm just
don't care.
Just kind of, well, really was just kind of curious because, as a fighter, especially in experience, when there's really not a lot of guys on the roster that have as many fights as you do. You fought in so many different organizations and have just seen this sport grow. Over the past decade or so. I just wasn't sure how you looked at that when you're like, man, I fought this guy back then. He didn't feel that good there in this fight, or this guy was tough, or this guy wasn't that tough. I didn't know how you looked at it now because a lot of the guys you have fought are kind of, they're in positions now where they've got bigger names and they're fighting for titles. I didn't know what you thought of that as somebody who holds victories over some of these guys.
Oh, I mean, it's cool. I mean, like, I hope Pettis kills it. You know what I'm saying? He's been killing it, and I mean, he's only lost twice to me and Clay, so it's kind of cool. I guess you can say, But yeah, I wouldn't want to fight a dude now. He's a fucking certified killer, man. He's whooping it up, And now he's at 45. Fuck that, He's a young stud. He's fucking crazy athletic, and he's just straight. He's just good. He's fearless. He's young, dude, and he's good. God bless him. Wish him the best.
Is that something you saw after you fought him when you're like, hey, I beat him, but that kid might be pretty good in a few years.
Yeah, no, he was a stud, man. Back there, it was a close, fight. Judges saw it my way then, but yeah, dude, he was a stud even back then, and from then on, he just grew as a fighter. He got better and better and better, and then he lost to Clay, and then you see him again. It's like when he loses, it gives him like a new motivation, man. It was crazy. It was like he was killing it. He lost to me, and then he fucking jumped 3 steps. You know what I mean? And then he was climbing. He lost to Clay, and then he jumped 3 steps. And now he's getting a title shot. It's awesome,
Yeah. So, what do you think of that? What do you think of that fight? You're a guy it's been around. Like I said, you fought him. When you look at Aldo, Aldo's a straight killer. Also, what do you think about that fight?
If I really think Pettis can win that fight. I think it's a good fight for him. I think that technically he's good enough to stand with Aldo. I just had a brain fart, and going kick for kick. Aldo has a hell of a kick and all that, but Anthony's got some banana kicks, man. He's coming up the wall and shit. So. It's going to be a good fight, but I definitely think Pettis can win that fight. He's got a solid ground game, and again, the kid's just fearless. But that's a very, very dangerous weapon to fight somebody that just knows he's going to beat you. Like, no matter what, I'm going to beat you. That's in his fucking head, and that's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. Let me ask you this. Getting off the featherweight division, we have some big fights coming up this weekend, Bart. We have Chael Sonnen versus John Jones and Michael Bisping versus Alan Belcher. What are your thoughts on this weekend's fights, man?
Chael Sonnen versus John Jones, yeah. Man, he he's a great fighter, but he's a better salesman for sure, man. He gets his fights, man. I don't know if he deserves some of them, but he definitely tucks his way into them.
That's the truth.
But I think John beats him. I mean, I don't know, man. He gets his big fights because he talks a big game, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I mean, if you're not betting on John, you're just dumb. I mean, that's that's all I can say about that fight.
For sure.
What was the other fight with the?
Alan Belcher and Michael Bisping. That's the co-main event this weekend.
Oh yeah, I don't know, man. I think Belcher's one of those guys you can't count out ever. He always comes through, man. The guy's solid.
He is solid, And there's been a lot of trash talk. There's been like some crazy bets about tattoos and cars and all
I've
this
seen
stuff.
some videos, yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. I'm looking forward to that fight. I'm looking forward to Chael Sonnen versus John Jones too. I think I agree with you. Chael Sonnen, he's the ultimate salesman. He obviously talked his way into this fight, and I think John is. I think that
Coming off a loss to the lighter weight, get a title shot.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be reminiscent of the old Mike Tyson days where people pay $50 for a pay-per-view and it's over, and a minute they don't feel like they got their money worth. You know what I mean? Because John Jones, I think, is going to walk right through this guy. I mean, thank you, Chael, for providing all of us fans with entertainment. But at the end of the day, he's got to go in there and back it all up. I don't think he can do it.
No, I mean, John's stand-up is fucking crazy, and the only way Chael was killing freaking Silva was because of his wrestling, and he won't be able to impose that wrestling on John. You know what I mean?
Right,
He's gonna get tough.
That's right.
So it's like the one tool that you got up on many guys is John's just gonna, stop his shots. I think. I mean, God knows what's gonna happen. Chael might be double-legging John all night long. You never know. But I think John's gonna stop it.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about this right now, me and him were actually talking about this earlier, and I want to get an expert opinion on it. Did you get a chance to watch the fight?
Why you asking me then?
No, you're the fighter with 50-something fights. What do you mean? Why we're asking you? Yeah, you've got 50-something fights against the top guys in the world. Who did you think won the fight this weekend between Benson and Gill?
I'll plead the fifth.
Oh yeah, come on.
All right, I think if it's a close fight, I've always thought about it this way. If it's a close fight, like you're not sure which way it's got to go, it's got to go to the champ. That's just kind of in my eyes. And it was kind of a toss-up in my eyes. I was like, but Benson is the champ. You got to give it to the champ. You know what I mean? If you want the belt, you got to take it from. You can't kind of be like, well, it could have gone either way. All right, let's give it to Melendez. I don't think it can be like that. So
yep.
I think that the way the fight went and the way the scores were, how close everything was, I think that Ben takes it. Basically because he is the champ.
Yep, I agree, Bart. When we first hit the broadcast button on our show tonight, I pretty much said the exact same thing. It comes down to that old saying: you got to beat the champ to be the champ.
That's an old Ric Flair line. Yeah, you just went pro wrestling on us with the Ric Flair line. I agree. You got. I thought that
I'm gonna get sued.
it was a little bit. You know what? Like when I was watching the fight unfold, I was just thinking like, these rounds are close. And the people around me were like, "Oh no, I think Gill is winning." And I was like, "Well, if they think that, I don't know who's winning." My mind is kind of clouded too. You know that, Pedro. Is when you know people and you're friends with people who are fighting also, that you're like, I don't. my mind will kind of drift in one direction or another. And so I was just kind of listening to everybody else's shit around me, and they're like, "Oh, I think Gil is winning." So as they're reading the scorecards, I was like, "Oh, I think Gil might have won." But then they called Ben's name, and I'm like, "You got to beat the champ." So I guess you guys are right.
That's it.
I don't know if it's the right, I mean, I don't know if it's the right call, but why should you punish the champ, for having a tough fight? I mean, I don't know. That's how I see it, but, people might disagree, but they can kiss my ass.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Bart. Thank you very much again for coming and joining us, man. I want to close out with.
Oh, my pleasure, guys.
Yeah, I want to close out this interview with one thing. Now, I actually just pulled up your record, okay, and I'm looking at it now, and I'm sure you had. Was your first fight Cole Escovedo, or did you have some fights before that aren't really official?
Yeah, I probably had about, I don't know, 10, 12.
Exactly. That's commonplace for guys who go back as far as you. They don't count the old.
Take it easy.
Yeah, they don't. Exactly. No,
I'm an old geezer.
We already established this, brother. Come on, you're the spring chicken on the show right
Hey,
now.
man.
So let's not go there.
I'm gonna be 30 next month.
I
Hey,
thought we stopped
30.
talking about this.
I remember that. I remember that, and God bless you, brother, because you're still young, man. Okay, 30 life just gets started.
30.
The dirty 30. That's right, bro. That's right. All right. Well, here's what I want to close it out with for you, man. Okay. Some words of inspiration. I'm looking at your record, bro. Your first official fight on record, Cole Escovedo. Okay. You lost that fight. You lost the 3 next fights. Okay. So that was 4 in a row. You came back to go on a tear. Okay. And you've had some really long win streaks in between. So whatever you did back then to have the mental fortitude to come through that 4-fight losing streak and rise above it and kick all these other guys' asses, do it again for the fans, bro. Okay, you're on a 3-fight skid. You know you can do better than that. The fans know you can do better than that. So all the fans, myself included, whatever it took to drive through that moment in your past, do it again. Come back strong, brother, and let's get you on the show again, okay? And best of luck to you in the future.
For sure, homie. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Bart, man, and best of luck, bro.
Hey, guys. Have a great night.
You too. All right, George.
Yeah, yep. It was funny you said that. I kind of looked up Bart's record also while we were talking. I'm like, man, he has fought a lot of guys,
Yeah.
like really good guys, and he's picked off a lot of good guys. One of 2 people to pick off Pettis, man. That is not easy work.
I mean, here's the thing. Like he said, styles make fights. And that really is true. It's like the Cormier versus Muir fight. Dude, that was a stylistic nightmare for Frank Mir. Josh Thompson, Nate Diaz, stylistic nightmare for Nate Diaz. Okay, this guy can win fights though. Bart can win fights. He just has to get the right opponent. He's got to get the right camp. The stars have to align. Hopefully the UFC gives him another chance. I don't want to jinx him, like he said. He busted me out on that, but what a cool guy to talk to. If anything,
Yeah,
if nothing
absolutely.
but. I mean, the guy's an awesome dude. I'm pretty sure I worked with him a couple times in the past. That's why I have his number. But this was the most in-depth conversation we've had, and he was kind of like the most chill, relaxed guy we've had on.
Yeah, as I told you, I was like, yeah, he's really. I mean, I follow him on Twitter, and he's he's a really chill dude, and yeah, he trains really hard, man. Like he legit trains really fucking hard.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody realizes how much work that dude puts in, but he's putting in work, and he kind of blew off like kind of and really he's a humble guy because he kind of just undersold. Oh well, I beat Pettis and it was a long time. It wasn't that long ago. Okay, that shit wasn't that long ago.
It was like 3.5 years ago.
3.5 years
It
ago.
was in the WEC days. I mean, that's like
Bar-
not that. Yeah, that we're
It
not
wasn't
that far
that long
removed.
ago. We're talking December 2009, okay? Basically, almost 2010, all right? Not even 3.5 years removed from that, okay? So it's not like, that was Brock Lesnar diverticulitis time. So it's not like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's not like that shit was that long ago. So he
that's true,
he
man.
definitely he's a humble guy, and I appreciate the fact that he's a humble guy, but he's put in work against a lot of dudes. He's fucked up a lot of guys. And fortunate decision or not, that's the way the judges saw it, and nobody says nothing any different. Nobody says anything any different about Benson and Gill. The judges saw that fight the way it was. Hey, Bart pulled it off that night. He was a better guy. On the record books, it's always going to show that he beat that guy. If Pettis comes out and he beats Aldo, who is considered one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world now, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I mean, that's the consensus.
Okay, general consensus is that he is one of the top pound for pound. And I mean, he just beat Edgar, who was a 155-pound champ. I mean, you can't really deny that he is that damn good. If Pettis comes out and beat him, Bart beat him. I don't care what anybody says. He can always just look at that guy as a champ and say, "I beat that guy."
Yeah, that's true. That's
Period.
true. I think the important thing too is when you analyze Bart's losses. Okay, he lost to Hiyoki, he lost to Diego Nunez, right, and then most recently Cole Miller, right. But the first two I named, I mean, those are division standouts. Hiyoki is a freaking beast, and Nunez is pretty damn good too, you know. It's not like he's losing the chumps out there, is what I'm trying to say.
No, he's not. Cole Miller's been in the UFC forever, okay? Just so everyone realizes how long Cole Miller has been in the UFC. Cole Miller was on BJ's season of Ultimate Fighter, okay? Just so if everyone wants to realize his entrance to the UFC, in fact, his interview on the very first episode was, "I love BJ Penn's my favorite fighter of all time."
Before BJ Penn ever won the lightweight title, Cole Miller was
Yes,
on the Ultimate
Cole
Fighter.
Miller. Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go. There's
He
some retrospective for you.
So just to look at it from that perspective, so it wasn't like Bart just got picked off by some kid who's got 6 fights and has no experience. He's one of American Top Team's standouts at their headquarters in Coconut Creek. He's a black belt under Laborio. He's legit. And he's really really good, and Bart's really good too. And these are all quality opponents. Diego Nunez, like you just mentioned, he's been like a guy that's been at the top of the 145. He's been in that mix. He's fought a lot of really good guys, and so it just could be like you said, an opponent thing.
Yep, that's true. Um, what do you think about this night's show? I think that was our last guest. We had Bart. Uh, I think we had a pretty good panel. Josh Thompson sounding super excited about his win over Nate Diaz, and rightfully so, right? Daniel Cormier, not ecstatic about his performance, but he had a lot of good things to say. Cub Swanson, he brought some pretty memorable statements when he was talking about the defense of his team and how pissed he gets when people talk shit about it. I mean, overall, I think we provided our listeners as well as you and I with some entertainment this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. These are all really, really good, really, really cool guests. It was good. It was good to talk to Daniel, and like I said in the when we were talking to him, you know, a lot of people can't really appreciate what was going on there, but those guys are putting in work against that fence. I can't explain to you how grueling that is. Just experience it. For any of you that think that they weren't doing shit on that fence, just go get a free 1 week trial at a gym. Walk in for a day and say, I want to do 10 minutes, not even 10. I want to do 5 minutes of clinch work. Okay? Just tell me you want 5 minutes. You don't even have to come back for the rest of the fucking week. Just come in, do your 5 minutes, and see what that's like. And I guarantee you'll be like, all right, never mind. Those fools are doing work. That's real.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, fans, the common fan, I'll say, they have no patience for anything that it doesn't include punching, kicking people in the face, and blood. It's a the MMA fan base is pretty bloodthirsty for the most part.
Yeah, well, no, there's no doubt about that. Cormier was doing work in there though. He was landing good knees. He's going to be a tough fight for anybody in that heavyweight division, though.
He is,
It's
man.
just I don't see logically how you can't give him anybody other than uh you know a Junior Dos Santos or somebody like that at this point. I mean, how can you not? I mean, what are you gonna do? You gonna give him like a Travis Brown? That's that's not a good fight. Um, I
I
don't know.
mean, Junior Dos Santos stands out in my head. They're the heavyweight division isn't as stacked as people might lead it on to be. There's only a few guys. There's a handful of guys out there that are really at the top of that division. So I
I
mean,
feel like a lot of those wind got lifted from my sails as far as the heavyweights were concerned when Alistair Overeem got knocked out.
yeah. I mean that fool got knocked out, and that was probably the fight to make, man.
Yeah, that was it. I really wanted to see Dos Santos and Overeem. It just doesn't look like I was looking at the same Alistair Overeem that had fought before.
Well, he did have low testosterone after in that fight. His testosterone levels were dangerously low, so maybe they give him some TRT and he comes back to his old self.
Yeah, the juggernaut that came the
As
ju-
ridiculous as that sounds, that's what's gonna happen, bro.
that sounded
Dude, this guy's gonna file for a TUE. He's gonna file for that therapeutic use exemption. He already has the evidence backing it up. Like, he has low testosterone. He's gonna come back ripped and shredded and all big and badass, and he's gonna start wrecking fools again.
the commission doesn't give a fuck. They were like they gave him some tests and they're like, "You've done everything to satisfy us. Thank you very much."
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. If that's fine. I The guy that showed up and fought Bigfoot was not the guy that showed up and beat the shit out of Brock Lesnar. That's all I know.
Or like everybody else in the past however many years. I mean, he's been wrecking fools from freaking continent to continent and state to state for years until that fight.
Right, right. I mean, I think that he's gonna. I think that he's gonna have a. I think that he's gonna be more prepared as far as his camp is concerned. I think he's training with Badr Hari. I think he's back in or he's at Mike's gym in Holland.
Man,
Uh,
you know what? I think he really effed up by leaving Golden Glory, bro. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. Nothing against the Black Zillions and Glenn Robinson and all those guys over there, but he definitely probably made a mistake there. Should have stayed with Golden Glory.
I don't. It's it. What do you think about what I remember Boss saying something in an interview saying, no, Golden Glory had fixed Alistair. They knew that Alistair didn't have a chin, so they trained him to only throw, not throw any combinations, because when you throw combinations, you have to take your hands away from your face and your chin gets exposed. So they only have him throwing one punch at a time to keep one hand up by his chin, so he didn't get knocked out.
That's
That's what I. That was what Boss said.
I believe Boss, man. I think Boss is the truth, bro. I actually never heard that though, but definitely
That's
if
that,
if Boss said it, man, you kind of gotta go with that.
that's what Boss said. Boss said that he's like, well, there's a reason why Alistair Overeem never threw any combinations. They knew that. They knew that. They said he. I swear to God, he said they knew that if he threw more than one punch, his hands will come away from his face, and as soon as the other guy lands a punch, he's in trouble. And
Yeah.
so they had trained him to throw one strike at a time and keep a hand covered by his. This is what. These are not my words. These are from Boss Rutan. Okay, this is what it's. I can try to recall the interview. It might have even been on Joe Rogan's podcast. It may have been. I'm not sure. It was a pretty lengthy interview. I'm sure you can find it. You can.
Where's Joe Rogan, anyways? What do we call Rogan, George? What do we call him over here?
I call him the unicorn.
Dude, you call him the unicorn. Why? Because we haven't had him on the show yet, right? But who haven't we not had on the show? We can pretty much get whoever the F we want on this show, right? I think we've proven that. We have some pretty good lineups each and every single week. We've had every single UFC commentator there is to have on the show, except for Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he's the only one, and
How do we get him, dude? How do we get Joe Rogan?
I don't know how. We just sent him we sent him messages. He doesn't return our messages yet.
Dude, yeah, I could probably get his number from BJ, but I kind of like BJ. BJ, he's the boss, he's the fighter. It's my job to book these things. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't get the boss man involved when it comes to this. These are my relationships that I build and I work in, and I just don't know how to get a hold of this guy. I feel like we kind of harassed him on Twitter for this past week, and I think maybe we should create a hashtag called "Where is Joe Rogan?" pound Where's Rogan or something like that. And we have to keep plugging away, and we have to get our listeners to do the same, and we try to get this guy's attention somehow. Because I really don't know, man. Outside of stalking 10th Planet in Burbank and waiting for him to show up or something, I don't really know how to get him in here.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like, my suggestions have already been covered, which is simply send him messages. But he probably gets a ton of messages. It's kind of like, you know this, man. You can send. There's certain fighters. Even we even a lot of listeners know JD. How many messages were in JD's phone unread?
Okay, yeah, here's a crazy story. We were in Boston for Frankie Edgar 2, right? And this was before the bjpen.com of today existed. We were on what was called the Ning network. And our network was programmed entirely based off the iPhone. So what we were basically a video blog site for BJ, right? Where he was always posting his video blogs, as I'm sure most of the fans who have been with us since back in those days can attest to. BJ was blogging everything he ate, everything he did, and so on and so forth. Well, that was programmed through the iPhone. And basically through the bjpen.com app, which anybody can still download. It's still one of the top 10 iPhone apps that there are in the sports category. Okay, the BJ Pen app. Go ahead and get it if you don't already have it. But we could upload blogs and interviews and anything shot on the iPhone. We could upload it straight to the website. It would beam right on the homepage, and that's how we did it back in the day. So at the open workouts at UFC Boston, when BJ was getting ready to fight Frankie Edgar 2, my iPhone ran out of batteries. Okay, we're filming the open workouts. We're beaming them to the website from the cell phone. Everything's going lovely. Boom, cell phone dies. I go to JD. JD, I need to use your phone so I can continue shooting these videos of the workouts. He gives it to me. I open up his phone. JD Penn had 500 unlooked at, unanswered text messages. I had never seen such a thing. You don't realize how busy a guy is. Could you imagine? Can anybody out there imagine what it would be like to have 500 unanswered, unopened text messages in your phone? That's like a day's worth of work just trying to get back to people. That's nuts.
My phone would go in the fucking trash can. There's
That's
no way I would even deal. That's 500 unread text messages. Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
It's insane, bro.
You know, like if I come when I get out of training a lot of times because I'm in there for a few hours and I come out, sometimes there's like 8 or 9 and I'm like, damn. And I'm having to go through those and respond to them and it takes a few minutes. 600, okay? A lot of those aren't getting looked at. If you're part of the 600, chances are your shit didn't get read. Okay, because you sent too many messages and you can't read them, you know. So yeah, I mean, there's certain people that have those have that kind of like
You know what's crazy?
what's that?
Nate Diaz just hit me up
Mhm.
saying he's down for doing the radio show.
Okay, well, good. We get Nate on.
Let's see what's up. Keep talking, Georgie. I'm looking at my phone right now, and I'm like, I see a text message from Nate Diaz, and he's like, "Yo, I'm down to do the show?" Question mark. I'm like, I just text him. You want to do it now? We're live right now, brother. See what he says, man. Maybe we can get Nate on the line.
Yeah, go ahead. Why not? If he wants to jump on, we've already been going for 2.5 hours. But hey, why not? You know, MMA hour goes extended. Let's go extended. Why not?
Well, dude, that's the great thing about being on our own platform, right? We're streaming from bjpen.com. We are doing our own thing over here. We can, man, we could take up the airwaves as long as we want. We can load this server down, bro.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. This is why it's much better, and the call quality, audio quality, everything's way better. That'd be pretty cool. We had Josh on earlier. You know, uh, that was a hell of a fight, man. And those two first fights on Fox, the Jordan Mein Matt Brown fight, that was just freaking nuts. It was crazy. Was a I mean phenomenal fight. Both guys came out, and then the real fight that I was waiting for was Josh and Nate. Um, there's so much vested interest in that fight.
Here we
And
got, here we go. Not to interrupt you, George. Here's what Nate said. He said, "How about tomorrow?" I said, "Tomorrow, let's do it. Let me get off the air. I'll hit you up and set it up. Thanks, bro." He says, "Damn, man, I'm in a car full of people right now. Super bad timing." I said, "No worries." He said, "Cool." So what we're gonna do, George? I don't care what you have to do, man. We're gonna have to get Nate Diaz on. This guy, let me tell you something, okay? Nate Diaz and I have been working together for a long time, okay? As most people should know, Caesar Gracie and I are friends, right? Nate and I have worked together in the past, and Nate doesn't do interviews. When was the last time you heard Nate Diaz on a radio show?
he won't.
Does he do the MMA hour? Does he do the MMA hour? Does he do MMA Junkie Radio? No, he doesn't. How many interviews does this guy do? He does the mandatory required
That's
UFC
it.
interviews before fights. That's it. When I was in San Jose one night, okay, we were in San Jose for Strikeforce when Nick was fighting for Strikeforce. I don't remember who it was. I think Nick fought Zaromskis, or maybe it was the Daily fight in San Jose at the HP Pavilion. We were at the okay, I don't remember what hotel. We were at one of the hotels. I'm down there in the bar at the bar hotel after the fight. Nick had just won his fight. Nate and I had already had built this relationship, okay? And Nate came to me and he said, he was at the bar and he was like, "Hey, Pedro." And I was like, "What's up, man? How's it going? Good to see you." So and so. He goes, "Can we do an interview right now?" And I was like, "You are asking me to do an interview with you, brother? Like, oh, what's going on here, man?" He goes, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's just go over here in the corner. We went into the men's restroom, banged out a video interview. And that was that, bro. But, point is, Nate doesn't do a lot of interviews, but man, we can get him. We can get him here when we want to, when he has something to say, and apparently Nate Diaz has something to say. My guess is he's gonna go on a rant about the whole weight class thing. He wants new weight classes in the UFC. Pretty sure we're gonna help him spread that message. I don't think it's a bad idea, but ultimately, it's gonna be pretty cool to have Nate on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I want to stress to everybody how conflicted Pedro and I were when we were, forget what we were talking about on the air. Just when we were talking on the phone, we talk all the time or through text message. When we were talking about this fight, this was a tremendously hard fight for either of us to even want to pick. I have a lot of respect for both of those guys. Um, you know, whatever, anybody can say whatever they want about even Nick's fight with BJ. Our perspective was a little bit different than everybody else's going into that fight. We were even in Caesar Gracie's hotel room before, the night before
Before
they
before
fought.
before BJ fought Nick, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a lot of close relationships with that team, and you have a lot of close relationships at American Kickboxing Academy and Josh and John Fitch and all those guys, and it's not easy to pick. It's not easy to pick fights when people are like, "Oh, what do you think?" You only want your expert analysis and opinion. It's not easy to pick fights against guys that you like and have so much respect for and have
Yeah,
done work with.
it's the worst, man, because I I don't I don't ever try to be fake. You know what I mean? And it's one of the reasons why up until we started doing this radio show, I've kind of laid back behind the scenes and let the site and the work and that everybody does on the site speak for itself. I'm not a spotlight guy, and I am friends with a lot of the fighters in the UFC guys. Pre, post, past, future fighters that are going to be in the UFC. That have been in the UFC. And I'm a biased dude because I keep it real. I can't help it. You know what I mean? These are my friends. I'm sure anybody out there listening, if one of your friends was in the UFC, you'd be rooting for your friends. So it becomes pretty hard as a member of the media. You're supposed to be unbiased, but I mean, let's get real. Anybody that's not biased is being fake. You know what I mean? And that's just really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's oh, that's one thing that we consistently talked about. Like, we were talking about this radio show, years ago, long before
Right.
me and you ever did this, and we were talking about other people. We were like, well, we're not going to do it. We're going to get two other people to do it because neither of us wanted to be on the air. We roam around these events, totally under the radar from people. And that was one thing I was like, yeah, if we, when we talked about it later on or more recently, it's like, well, we're shooting it straight because, that's just how we've always done it is we just shoot straight with everything. If we're at the events, we're gonna shoot it straight with you. We don't. It's not meant to be offensive. It's not meant to piss anybody off or anything like that. It's just it is what it is. Like
Yep.
and like I think that people expect a certain bit of honesty, and I'm just not one to
Yeah, I
pull
mean,
punches and bullshit. Neither are you. So
it's impossible for me. It's just that's just how we roll over here, George. Let's just say that. All
yeah,
right. So tomorrow night, bro. Tomorrow during the day, sometime tomorrow when we get off the air, I'm gonna give Nate a call. We're gonna figure out the schedule, see when he can do the interview. I'm gonna have to make the time. You're gonna have to make the time. We're gonna do a special Thursday broadcast of BJPenn.com radio just for Nate Diaz because I know how rare of an opportunity it is to interview this guy. Even though him and I, we can text back and forth, so on and so forth. I don't get that many opportunities to interview this guy. Nobody does, like we said. So we have to make the time. I'm sure all the fans out there, the Diaz brothers army of fans, want to hear from Nate after his loss last weekend. So we're gonna make that happen for everybody. Adam, if you're listening, Adam, guys, for the folks listening at home, Adam is our Twitter guy. Adam, tweet that out right now, brother, please. Nate Diaz will be on a special Thursday broadcast at BJPenn.com radio solely for Nate Diaz, the only guest, and we'll try to get all the information we can out of him. George, you have anything else to say before we go, man?
oh man, no man, I appreciate everybody who's listening in, and yeah, we got more to come tomorrow, impromptu, but you know, just stay tuned. Things are gonna get better. We got a lot of big plans.
Hey, man, Diaz brothers, you can't expect anything less, right? He tries to, he's going to crash the party. We're going to let him crash it, bro. That's the way you got to roll. If you want to do business with those guys, you got to be flexible. You got to make it happen. We're going to
Yeah,
make it happen.
exactly.
Not for us, but for Nate Diaz and his fans, so he can get his word out, so he can let everybody know how he's doing and what his thoughts are after his last fight. You know what I mean? That's kind of important.
Agreed, agreed.
All right, brother. We have no outro music, like we said earlier. We ran with no introduction. We're gonna run with no outroduction. We're just gonna let you guys go. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back here tomorrow night with Nate Diaz. I'll post the announcement up on bjpen.com. Follow us, George. What's your Twitter?
At G Matthews MMA.
There it is, at G Matthews MMA. I'm at LATLPEDRO, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Pedro, because I flop between the two cities. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Have a good night. Later.